everybody? Sound good? Okay. Well, welcome back, everybody. I was thinking for a checking question, usual, what did we do this week, pronouns, etc. But also maybe best moment over fall break, since we haven't actually officially met as a group, and so that might be kind of fun. Sound good? I guess I can go first. Hey, everybody. My name's Nolan. He, him, his, and this week I met with the public transportation working group, and we're planning a. I'll talk about it a little more later, but we're planning a bike safety event for later in the month, and that was basically. And I also went to the breakfast with Krislov, and let's see. The best moment over fall break for me was I had my wisdom teeth out, which wasn't the best moment, but the milkshakes that my mom made.
The milkshakes,
really
of course.
So that was the best moment. Anyway, we'll go this way. Oh, that way. Sorry.
Hey, my name's Jordan. He is his. Let's see. This week, things I did that represented everybody else. First of all, I met with the communications working group, and I talked to Tina's Wagon about some chartering stuff, getting that train underway. And the best moment for fall break, I went to the art museum with my mom. That was nice.
Sarah, third year, she heard hers. Past couple weeks, I've worked on creating a student Senate health resources website, some response forms for student health and student counseling, or the counseling center. Met with Dean Estes about student health, went to student EMT working group, found a sponsoring department for student EMTs, and I'm reviewing your guys' time cards, figuring out how to get them on the website.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. Yeah.
We're at.
My name is Mahmoud. I see him in his third year. This week I went to breakfast with Krislov. I had my office hour. I went to a financial aid forum with Ben. That was very informative. I had a meeting with the Estes about 20 different things. I authored the resolution, which is in your inbox right now, and I hope you read. And I'm here right now. And what was it? Fall break. So I drove 20 hours both ways to South Dakota. First time it took me 2 days, second time it took me 1 day, and so the last 4 hours I was just like, I can really see, but they're just like focusing on the next 10 feet in front of me. Had 3 McDonald's coffees, 2 cheeseburgers, and then there was a moment.
Vomited.
Yeah, it was awful. And I kept listening to the same Drake song like on repeat. I was just like, oh yeah, and then
I'm not listening to it.
like 40 minutes prior to arriving here, I saw this sign, and previously when I had seen it, I'd be filled with enmity and and like unhappiness generally. But I saw it, and it said Lorain County, and I was so happy, and I just passed out as soon as I got here. So that was a great experience.
Cute. Hi, Megan. She, her, hers. I'm a senior. Woot. This week did breakfast with Krislov. Told Senor Chris about himself. Just kidding. However, we started talking about some ideas that I'm really excited to bring up with y'all, which most of you were there, so most of you know, but anyway. We had office hours. Nick was there. We were in the Merc. Went well. Some people came through, mostly didn't, so we just kind of just talked about what our plans are moving forward with working groups, so that's another thing. ¿Qué más hay? I had my senior game today.
You won?
We won.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really intense. Number 9 thinks I'm cute.
All right.
Okay.
Do you want to?
I'm Madeline. I'm here to report for Fearless and Loathing. You can skip my check-in if you want.
No, we want you.
Tell us about fall break and what you've done for Student Senate.
I've done absolutely nothing for Student Senate. I had a fun fall break though.
It was me. It was my fault. I'm sorry.
What was your best moment of fall break?
I saw Birdman, which I really enjoyed.
Like the rapper?
I saw it too.
No, the movie.
I was like, yes. not to not yes you. I'm not unyesing you.
And the movie is underwear.
Yeah, it was funny. Yeah, I liked it.
I already got one.
Okay, cool. I'm Ty. I use he, him, his. For Student Senate this week, breakfast with Krislov, SFC office hours, Student Senate office hours, SFC ad hoc. I had a little bit more communication with the review about a possible article going in there. Are we doing best in the fall break?
Yeah.
Which I didn't mention, but whatever.
That's okay. Best thing of fall break, honestly, was going home and no longer going home and missing what it used to be like, or like thinking about like, these are all the things that aren't the same. Now it just feels the way it should feel.
Good.
So.
I'm Nick, third year, he, him, his. We had our office hours, which I already mentioned, the MRC, that was good. Breakfast with Krislov was chill. And we didn't have any working groups that I'm a part of this week. And then, favorite thing about fall break, I actually had a really shitty break, as it turns out, but, so the best moment for me was just like, thanks for that. The best moment for me was just like, needing a stress reliever and like getting in my car and picking a good album, going on the highway and driving really, really, really fast.
In the Mini Coupe.
In the Mini Coupe. Because I just love driving on New Jersey highways. They're just so well maintained. No shade, Ohio, but like, get your shit together. Anyway, yeah, check.
Right, I'm Corey, he, him, his. Did breakfast with Krislov, did students in office hours. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Fall break was just really nice going to see people at OSU. Their parties are about 100 times bigger than ours.
Cool. I'm Ben, he, him, his. Third year. Let's see, what did I do for Student Senate? I did office hours, continued doing committee stuff. We haven't had the best of luck. But regardless, we'll talk about that later. Let's see what else. Fall break. Visited some relatives in Georgia. It was fun. Got to see some of North Carolina, which was interesting. Yeah.
Interesting.
Zach, first year, he, him, his, for students this week. I had my 2 sets of office hours in the Hart dining room and Azariah's, respectively. And I went to breakfast with Krislov, and I'm now working on my committee application. Womp womp.
Yeah.
That'll be
Did you say womp womp?
I said womp womp. WOMP times 2.
But with the hands up too, it's kind of confusing. But
And so fall break, I think the highlights were a little too PG-13 for this recording, so you can just move on. It's cool.
I gotta hang around you more.
You can tell us over the break.
Yeah. Alright. Hi, I'm Anjali. I prefer she, her, and hers. This week for Student Senate, I sent some emails to like city council members. I did my office hour. I did something else that I can't remember. And over break, what did I do? Oh, I went home, and the best moment was when I walked in and my mom had this huge plate of food. Oh, so good. Anyway,
What was
yeah, that was a party.
What was the food?
It was like traditional South Indian food, and it was like all really good. And I was like, this is the way it should be. Anyway, that was me.
All right, I'm Justin. I'm for he, him, his. I sent out the trans allyship thing again, so if you could all fill that out. I went to student health working group, but it wasn't meeting, so it was kind of a nice surprise. I put the slips under all the desk numbers for the referendum. I did office hours. And then my break, I was visiting a certain someone, and it was also parents' weekend for him at his school, so on Friday morning I was really hungover and I got to spend 6 hours with his parents.
Did you puke on him?
I didn't puke on him. I tried my best not to.
You tried to, no, you didn't.
We should write the time down.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Every other week.
It's an important question. Cool.
Yeah, I did not.
Only questions I ask.
I'm Albert. I prefer he, him, and his. And the past week I've recovered my health according to the Senate. Excuse me for not having come to the breakfast with Mr. Criswell. Meanwhile, I did perform other tasks. I had my office hours. I did manage to get the agenda on the website. And thank you for those who sent your minutes. I'm working on getting those on. So to do that, of course, requires me to send them to the Senate and then put them on the website. Best part of fall break, potentially sitting back, relaxing, watching many films at my computer. Better than what else I was doing, which I'll talk about under part 4.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
Excellent. Okay, so I guess it's moving on to approval of the agenda. Anything we want to add? Yeah, Mark.
We put steering committee under discussions and
Saxgate.
Yeah.
Saxgate.
Thank you.
Just really like talking about sax.
You have to get that copyrighted.
What?
No
Doing
one is
staff
that.
to talk about sax.
Is the Jeffrey Sachs discussion up there as well?
Oh yeah, let's put that here. Let's put that up here. Okay.
Sackgate?
Is that what that is, or is it
Saxgate,
some
not
other
Sackgate.
sack?
You need the S. Sackgate's a way dirtier thing.
I don't want to know what SAG. I mean, our lives are SAGgate. Let's be
Okay.
Guys, come on now. We're on the record.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ben.
I don't know if it's already. I can't see it.
So my writing's terrible. I can tell you if anything.
Defending Oberlin Financial Accessibility Forum. I don't know if
DOFA.
Lockwood wants to talk about it, but I'm happy to talk about it. I think it's something that we should talk about.
Do we want to put that under discussions as
Yeah,
well?
yeah.
Okay.
I regret not making.
Because I think it'll involve us soon, if not already.
Guys, I have my X-Go.
Also, if I misspell words, I'm terrible at writing up words, as my high school teachers will attest, so please forgive me. Alright, okay, so financial
As long as you
aid.
know what.
Yeah.
You can just say DOFA.
Yeah, you can.
DOFA.
DOFA.
Do we know
Okay,
if Nick
anything else?
and
Anyone else?
Zachary are coming?
Alright.
Oh.
Okay. How do we feel about the agenda?
Two duplicate names.
We good? Okay. Excellent.
Ah,
So
wow, we
approved
only
the
need one.
agenda. Alright.
Wait, hold on a
I
second.
got one.
Yep.
I don't need one.
Was fall break on there?
What do you mean?
Like the
Or break resources?
Under Krizlov?
Oh, that's the present breakfast.
Okay,
Yeah, I
great.
think so.
yeah.
I just, yeah, great.
Alright. Agenda set. Okay, excellent. Alright. Any outside business? Doesn't look like it. If alright, moving on. Should we move on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Good job, Nolan.
Announcements. Okay. Progress of bylaws plus handbook revisions. Who was the main?
So I come before you today because that during the break and sometime prior and now continuing after the break, I've been investigating the bylaws and the handbook as I was charged to do. And needless to say, it's evident that it's gone many, many, many years with many revisions which have been inconsistent. And so if I could just kind of show you, and I'll talk to the record about it. Every page that I have done is in need of some reconsideration. These ones come from the bylaws. If I start at page 1 of the bylaws,
Oh my god.
there are substantial problems.
For the record, there's lots of red corrections on what he's flipping through. You guys can't see it at home, but
All in favor, because
To our radio.
I really trust that all things are correct.
Yes.
But we can't really vote on them unless we all go ahead and spend like an hour passing around that binder. Would you be able to scan them and send them out?
Sure, when I've finished. I made it to Article 10, committee appointments, and have not yet finished. And then, I mean, there are some changes that I noted because I didn't print myself a new copy of the most recent changes, rather just mark them in. So certainly when I finish going through initially, there are a number of things that actually have to be addressed as a whole in terms of the essential dichotomy is in things which are not being currently done, should they A, be done, or B, be removed from existence? So certain tasks of different officer positions, whether they are still relevant and should be actually enforced and then points assigned for negligence, or should that duty simply be ousted. There are a few other cases. So likewise, what I'll do is when I've finished, I have to go through it and prepare a cleaner copy, and I'll note every single change in article, section, etc. format. And then these can be discussed. I'll note places that need discussion, and then when those changes are finalized, then a final draft can be approved or prepared, and then that can be circulated for review and approval.
Thank you, Albert.
Thank
I think
you,
you
Albert.
deserve it. Wow, that's incredible. You're incredible.
Like seriously, what a guy.
Yeah.
Thank you
so much.
No, when you're all done with this, we should have his name on there somehow. Be like,
The Albert
Yes.
rules for students.
We will throw you a party.
You should get like a
Gold
stamp.
medal.
One final would be, I did once tell see that I'd be interested also in preparing a kind of digest of jurisprudence, because some of the things that are written are understood, but maybe it's best that they be codified in a separate reading. So it would be to say, well, we can write it this way, but then just have a note elsewhere that clarifies what it says.
in plain English.
Yes.
All right. Sounds good. So if there are no objections, shall we move on to office hour reports? Excellent. All right. And now the way we do it, if you guys want, unless we don't want to do it this way, is do we want to do it where if only anything significant happened in your office hours, you report it? Excellent. All right. So we'll start with me. Except for committee applications, which I did, nothing else during my office hours.
We're just doing significant, right?
Yeah.
Just doing
So
Okay,
anyone who wants
right.
to jump in.
I had one thing. I talked to my friend Laura Shriver, who had been misdiagnosed with mono, not with mono, at the counseling center. She talked about how the tests there are only 25%, they have a 25% error rate. But she wasn't informed of this when she took it. She was informed afterwards, after she had gone other places. And she's talked to other students who had had this problem too. So there are two inherent problems with this. Either they need to get better tests, or B, they have to warn kids that the test might be wrong if they get a negative.
So she had mono.
She had mono. They told her she didn't. She went on to do some things she shouldn't have done having mono, because there are risks, right? Kidney, spleen, something. And so it could have been bad. And also she was just sick for a long time. And she said she had talked to two other kids who had a similar thing happen. So this is just something for health people to be aware of. That was an interesting thing that happened.
For the record, how did she find out about the error rate?
She complained, she was like, after she had gone to Cleveland, gotten other tests done, 'cause she couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, right? She was like, I feel terrible. They say I don't have mono. They can't figure out what I have, so she went to Cleveland. And then when she found out she had mono, she went back to the health center, and she was like, what's going on? Why did I not get diagnosed correctly? And they were like, well, our tests have a 25% error rate. So that's how. So she was upset about it, and I thought that's something that needs to be fixed. So,
Thank you, though.
yeah, sure.
Mahmoud?
I think we definitely. I don't want them. Like you see the problem in people coming in and telling them, by the way, what we're about to tell you may be completely wrong, right?
Right.
It's just kind of weird. Like I wonder whether like a more accurate test is just more expensive.
I'm sure it's more
Like,
expensive.
money.
She says, Laura said there's different kinds of tests and like at different levels of invasiveness, and like all, like unless you like are drawing blood and like sending it to a lab, there's like a decently high error rate. I do think kids need to be warned that it could be wrong, so they don't go on doing other like dangerous activities based on a negative that could be wrong.
So generally in situations like this, just having been diagnosed with like 10 things in my life, a statement that would be made by a health professional, because there is a problem with being like, this test is 25% inaccurate, and then like having every person who gets a negative run off, is I don't know why there wouldn't be because this is a rapid test that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know why student health or just anyone would have said if your symptoms continue for another, say, week, please come back, because generally the problem with rapid tests is they look for a certain level of antibodies in your blood, or for strep, like a certain amount of bacteria on your throat, and your levels just aren't high enough. So it's not that the test is necessarily inaccurate, it's just not sensitive enough.
Right.
Which I think is an important distinction when we're talking about medical tests. So we can definitely talk about making students more aware of how these tests work, and the fact that their symptoms, if their symptoms don't go away, it's definitely a problem, they need to come back. But demanding that students know that, like, the statement this test is not highly accurate is very worrisome, because 75% accuracy actually isn't that bad for a medical test, especially a rapid.
Right, but for something like mono, where like I've had mono before, there are certain things that you can't, like you're not supposed to do any physical activity because you can really damage your internal organs. So if they had said something like, maybe not even like, look, this test is only 75% accurate, but like, look, this test has been known to deliver false negatives. For the next week, take it easy and don't do anything that you wouldn't do if you had been diagnosed with mono. You know, because then, I mean, thinking about it purely from the school's perspective, if Laura had, let's say, decided she was going to go play touch football and got hit in the stomach, then the school is liable. You know, like that's a huge liability on the part of the school.
No, he's looking for something
Time
else.
out on this conversation for 1 minute. I ask both Fearless and Loathing, and whoever puts up the recording, to get rid of Laura's name from this conversation.
Oh, yeah, no, of course.
And can we, from now on, refer to her as the student?
Yes.
Why? I'm just curious.
Unless you have direct permission from her.
I guess she didn't tell me to bring it up at Plenary, but okay, sure.
What if you like texted her and were like, hey, do you have a problem with your name being up in this context?
I'll do that.
Would that resolve the issue?
Yeah, but until then, can we just call her the student?
That's fine. It's just then I'm gonna have to go through and like edit it, which is cool. But if I don't have to do that, then
that's cool.
Megan, did you want to say something?
It's okay.
No, go ahead.
No, it's really okay. I just think like tomato, whether the test is inaccurate or if it's just not delivering the thing at the time, it's like if you receive advice from a medical professional and it ends up being inaccurate advice, that's the effects of that trump whether or not we need to like disclose this information, even if it's like only 25%, in my opinion. Because like you said, like imagine if you are given this kind of diagnosis and God knows what you're willing to do after finding out that you're like totally okay. We can't take that kind of risk without disclosure. I feel like I don't know if there's anything we can do about it per se, but I think if we can, then we need to like make sure that this stuff is disclosed moving forward.
The reason I talked about like, actually, Anjali.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it really could be as simple as just tacking on like, if the symptoms persist till like the end of that. Like, you got a negative, but if your symptoms persist for another week, come back. Like, I don't think you have to be like, it is 25% inaccurate. You could just be like, well, this says it's negative, but if your symptoms persist, like, don't, like.
And also, even if they don't go out and play touch football for another week or two, like.
Right.
And also say it's a pregnancy test. You know, like what if those are often inaccurate or often give you false negatives, and if you're getting that from the student health office and they're like, you're not, then what happens from that point on? It's a snowball, and we have to think about like what is going to happen when these kinds of false prognoses are delivered.
Sarah?
So the reason that I reacted just like slightly negatively to having this could be inaccurate without the like come follow up with us in a week or something is because rapid tests are used because they're cheap, they're quick, and they're invasive. So like to have every person who gets that test be like, oh, this is 25% inaccurate, let me go to Cleveland Clinic to get a more invasive test. For 75% of people, that's far more expensive and intrusive than it needs to be, whereas a warning that's like, yo, come back in a week if your symptoms still persist, we want to make sure this is nothing to worry about, is going to save a lot of people a lot of time and a lot of money. And also, like, medical procedures can be scary. Like, this test is 75% accurate, there's a reason why medical professionals use it, because it does dissuade a lot of fear. Mono is a scary disease. Like, so saying after you get that test, please don't partake in these activities for a week and come back if your symptoms persist, is a lot less scary than saying there's a 25% chance this is inaccurate, please go get another test, or the only way we can tell is by having you get another test.
I had Ty, Mahmoud, and Megan.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, like, I think the health working group can probably talk about this or whatever. I think we can probably, I would propose to move on and talk about something else.
All right.
Unless other people have something they really feel like they need to say.
All right, so we have a proposal to close stack with the people, with the idea that the people still on stack will get a chance to say something. Does that
Okay, yeah.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, Mahmoud.
You're the chair of student health, right?
Yep.
Could you contact student health and ask them what the procedures are in terms of letting people know what the probability is that the test that they just got a result of is inaccurate?
Yep.
Just because, like, if there's a general protocol for like most of the things and it varies based on percentage, then if we know that, then we can do something about it. And I suspect that this is a money issue, but that would be helpful to know.
Student health also can't draw blood, which is the reason they don't do more invasive tests.
I guess I have a few things to say. Like, I understand that there's an issue with telling people that there's a 75% chance that this is like going to be inaccurate just off the bat. Sorry. Yeah, you know what I mean. There's only a 75% chance that this is right. 25% just whatever. The issue, like, I understand, Sarah, like what you're saying and how that's going to like make people be frenzied, but I also think like that's the same mentality that the administration had going into the rolling out the new financial aid policy. They were like, people are going to freak out, so we shouldn't tell them, you know, and that's a big issue. We need to be transparent. And I also wonder if these things need to be like, if they're mutually exclusive. Like, I feel like you could be like, this test is 75%, or like there's a 25% chance that this is wrong. If you feel like you were given a false reading, come back. And like if your symptoms persist, come back. I feel like you can do both, and I feel like we owe it. I feel like I would like that. You know, I feel like I am owed that when I go to seek professional medical advice, that I am told exactly what I'm getting into, that there's no like punches being pulled. Because then like after that, like later down the line, it's like, oh, thanks, by the way, for mentioning that. That would have, you know, I would have made some plans maybe. It's just like the way that I'm thinking about it.
All right, so if there are no further discussions on this, we'll move on, and we're continuing with office hour reports. If anybody has any?
I thought this was, yeah, okay, no.
Sorry, yeah. We good? All right, so if there are no more office hour reports, we are going to move on to committee reports. Oh, wait, yeah.
Oh, I mean, this doesn't have to do with office hours. It's just Nick and Zach just arrived and they're on record. So you want to say a quick hi?
Viewers at home can know.
Zachary, he, him, his, Senator here, what else do I have to say? Is that it?
Okay, so that's fine.
It's fine. Just
Hi,
for
guys.
the record.
Hi, I'm Nick Olson. I use he, him, and his. This week, I attended Crystal's breakfast. I'm in the process of sending an email to Michelle Gross. I did other things. What else did I do? I did other things. I sent an email.
Are you sending that email about laundry? Is that
Yeah, I'm sending an
for
email about
laundry.
laundry. I'm having a lot of laundry issues lately. A lot of other personal stuff. Sorry. Also, so anyone knows, and I just sent you an email. I think this is the first time I've been late, but I have rehearsal from 3 to 7, and Senate starts at 7. Also, I do not have time to get dinner I do not have time to get dinner, and so I always stop at Dascom. So if I'm late in the future, again, which there's a chance that I will be, that is where I am. And so if there's points that need to be worked out, let's work them out.
As office manager, I just gave him an extension to be here by 7:20 before his clock starts. If anyone has a problem with that, then you can talk to me, but
All right, so in that case, moving on to committee reports. Good on that? Excellent. All right.
We'll get an update with where we are on that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sure. Basically, I'll send all of you guys another email and just to remind you, but if you guys could look at the committee list that Nick has compiled so far and see which ones you're interested in, and then fill out an application. I'll send that also to you guys. It's on. The application is on the Senate account, but I'll send it to you guys in an email. And then yeah, just get that back to me and Corey.
Sorry, quick note. A note on the spreadsheet that I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure, as of now, it's only shared with us three and the Student Senate email. So if you want to access it, go on Student Senate. If you guys would like, and you can give me a little thumbs up if that's something you'd like for me to invite all of you guys to that. Yeah?
Good reminder.
Yeah, I can do that pretty easily. I can do that right now, in fact.
Jordan, you have a clarifying question?
Yeah, so I met with Tina Zwega to talk about chartering and stuff, and apparently as chartering liaisons, Nolan and I are on like some chartering subcommittees. Does anyone know if that fulfills the committee obligation?
No.
It doesn't?
I would guess not.
Yeah, I remember talking to him. Sorry, Corey, Ty?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, senators evidently, according to Aaron, we do not need to go through the interview process.
Yeah.
So if you just respond, we can get you on there right away, because the biggest issue that we've been having is a really bad response rate to the emails. Like we've got people coming in being like, oh, I'm interested in this, and we'll send out an application, and then we just never hear back. And you guys don't have to worry about scheduling.
Yeah,
So wait, then am I already on a committee? Because I already sent you back.
No. Well, okay. It's a little
Yeah, we can talk about
a little more
this later.
complicated.
That's fine.
Basically, just like I'll just go over the process really quick. So normally, people have to fill out an application and then do an interview, and then we appoint them in general session. But for senators, because I mean we all know each other and we will presumably be present for being appointed. You don't really need to do an interview.
Or apply.
Well, I think it's best if we do the applications just for a couple reasons, and one of them it's just for like records keeping, and also just because like I think it's a polite thing to do because we're sort of forcing ourselves on these committees. So at the least we can do is fill out the applications. Like, don't worry about it. It's like really easy. Don't attach a resume. But like, yeah, just put like basic information. Don't worry about it.
Took me 7 minutes.
Okay.
Also, to be
It's a
sorry,
long
real
time.
quick,
No worries.
you're all already invited on that sheet. So.
Thanks, Nick, for checking. Hi, next. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just, well, I want to add a committee awareness drive of some kind to
Yeah.
discussions.
Okay. Thank you. Not going to be next.
You can take it off.
Okay, Justin?
Yeah, I was just going to say, what's the email that we send committee things to?
oc.committees@gmail.com.
Cool.
All right. Any other business related to committee reports?
The responses have stopped trickling in, so I'm going to send out another email probably tomorrow.
Okay.
Sorry, just for the SFC.
Clarifying question. So I sent you my committee application. Should I
Yes.
send it anywhere else, or do you have to look over it first?
If you could send it to the OC committees account, that'd be great.
Okay.
But don't know that too much.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. In that case, how do we feel about moving on to working group reports? Excellent. Okay. So up first is the Sustainable Transportation Working Group. I can do a quick rundown of that. So that's been going well. It's a group that involves a lot of community members as well as students, and what we're focusing on now is twofold. One is a transportation guide, which is a comprehensive guide of all the transportation options available at Oberlin College, in the Oberlin community and college, including like bike trails, where parking is available, where good walking spots are. It will also contain bike safety information, such as bike bylaws, laws, like things that you might not normally know, such as, oh, by the way, you need to have a headlight, state law to have a headlight on your bike if you're traveling at night. So something that people might not know. And that's a comprehensive guide that we're working on right now, and we're going to share with the community and the campus in general. The second thing is the transportation working group. After responses from a lot of community members, especially since it's getting a lot darker, is that they're having a very hard time seeing students at night because so many students do not have bike lights, even though it's required by law, but it's not really enforced very well. The problem is that it's unsafe because especially seniors I've been talking to, have a very hard time seeing students at night who are traveling around, and so there's been a lot of danger that they're worried about hitting students and causing accidents. So what we're trying to do is have, on the weekend of the 22nd and 23rd, the weekend before Thanksgiving, we're trying to have some kind of bike safety event where it would be a promotional piece to get students to buy lights. And what we were thinking of having them do is getting some kind of money, maybe from the Green Edge Fund, to have an event where we could get Swerve and partner with Swerve to basically sell lights at a reduced price, or even give them out for free to students, and have some kind of band, food, fun activities to get students to come out on that weekend and basically buy lights. And it's something last minute, but a lot of the members are really concerned that if we don't do something, it's going to be a big issue. So basically, that's in a nutshell what the Sustainable Transportation Work Group is doing. If you have any questions for me, please come forward. I'd love to talk about it. Thanks. Yeah, Zach.
Are you involving the bike co-op as well, or just?
I've reached out to the bike co-op as well, so we'll be meeting with them this week, and I can give updates on that.
Are you going alone to that, Ellen?
Not necessarily. I was originally, but if anyone else wants to join, I will CC people on the email.
I'll show face.
All right. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So next up, if there's no other questions about that, we have student EMT. So I'll yield the floor.
So we met today. We, in the past couple of weeks, have found a sponsoring department that's having an EMT course. For those of you who don't know, we're trying to get both an EMT course and a student EMT course on campus. As far as the course goes, we're sort of died down a little bit, but we are revamping to assuage liability concerns with the college and to get it through the chartering process. We have a group on campus, with the budget all written up for spring budgeting, and right now really we're looking for about $14,000 to pay for the course, which would serve 15 students, all inclusive including their books, which is cheaper than almost every course here. So, not doing too shabby. Looking for monies, and if we get all our crap together and can get funding, we will have a course for the spring because EXCO will allow it to happen. But if not, it looks feasible for next fall, which is awesome.
Does anyone know of any board of trustee members that are in the medical profession that might want to donate
You can look
to
that
the
up.
cause? That's definitely a good thing to look up.
Medical people make money.
Yeah, they do. Generally.
Sometimes. After they take off med school.
No, yeah, but that would be in line with their interests. They would
Yeah.
they would probably pay $100.
Yeah.
Miss you. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's fine. All right. In that case, let's see. Working group reports. Anything else related to Macam?
So I got updates from transportation and was that? Yes, he sent it to me. But I need everyone else to send me a report if you're the chair of a working group for the monthly report. I'm going to write that on Tuesday. So if you want people to know what you've been doing, send that to me as soon as possible, please.
Ben?
One other thing, Transparency Working Group, our first meeting is this coming Thursday at 5 p.m. Somewhere in Wilder. Just have to reserve the room. And yeah, there's considerable interest in it. So yeah, hopefully it'll be a nice show of people.
All right. Cool. If there are no objections, shall we move on to decisions? Sounds good. All right.
Cool, great.
So I have here the Mahmoud's resolution.
Yes.
Point number 1.
I do. So I sent this to everyone about an hour and 15 minutes ago. I hope you've had a chance to read it. If not, you do have that right now. So basically this is based off of the discussion we had, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, in regards to passing the resolution concerning the Lorain County Metro Parks levy, which is on the ballot in 2 days. Election day, big day, favorite day of the year. So yeah, basically, I got the sense that we agreed that we were in support, but also wanted to qualify that by stating that we also acknowledge that perhaps we shouldn't be encouraging students who are not residents of Lorraine County to participate in the elections. That's something they decide on their own. And so I wrote that into it at the bottom. Perhaps not well, but you can make that in your own judgment. So yeah, just let me know what you think. Amendments, changes in language, I'd be happy to do that.
Sorry, Zach, yeah.
All right, I just want to say this is going to sound somewhat hypocritical, perhaps, because I'm not voting in Lorraine County. I'm voting absentee because of personal beliefs, but I'm not trying to proselytize any views. I do, however, want to say that I think that the Metro Parks levy is a good idea, and that I'm supportive of your idea of endorsing this, but not but raising the implication that perhaps students registering to vote in Lorraine could be problematic, but doing it somewhat lightly. So I actually I'm supportive with the agenda of this. That's all I want to say pretty much.
Cool.
It's a touchy, walking a line, I don't know. I don't want to, yeah.
Corey, Zachary.
This is slightly broader, but were we not also talking about, in addition to this resolution, putting one out to urge students to vote, also not necessarily in Lorraine, but just in general? Yeah, should we affiliate those two things since we're kind of running really close on time? Or, yeah, I guess.
Is that direct response? Or?
Yeah, actually, I had something written and then I took it off that said something along the lines of, it was after the last one, it said Student Senate encourages all students to vote, but within their interpretation of what the proper jurisdiction of that should be. And I read that and I was like, number one, that's not going to inspire any. So I just took it out. And so I kind of approached it from the standpoint of, by just passing this, we're implicitly saying that we endorse that people vote, perhaps not necessarily in their home districts, but I think that's also kind of encapsulated within the last portion. Okay. If you guys think it would be helpful to include that as a separate section, I'd be happy to write that right now, or if anyone else wants to write it, we can be a co-author.
Yeah, I guess, excuse me, sorry. On the topic of whether or not senators should say something about voting, an elected body of students saying that they support voting is probably the most useless and redundant statement ever. So that's what I think about that. And then on this particular issue, taxes, we should support it. I'm okay with it.
On the record, just liking taxes. That one against you later.
And also, aren't you a member of an elected body then throwing your support towards something?
What?
Well, you're
supporting voting.
Never mind.
Actually, Zach.
I just there's a few things I want to say. We're talking about the language. Maybe adding a sentence about Student Senate encouraging the Oberlin student body to make an informed decision during the voting process. It's pretty innocuous, but at the same time, it is saying we want you to vote. I think saying that we want people to vote is not unnecessary. There is so much apathy on this campus. There are so many people I know who are not registered to vote at all still, so they probably will, I mean, they won't be voting.
Barack Obama tells people to vote.
Yeah. I think it is a good idea to actually say, and maybe we don't need an entire resolution for this. It could be with another clause in this addressed, or just even with another sentence in the last one. I think saying that we believe people should vote is a good idea, because people on this campus, I'm not trying to name names because I don't know any of the names, but there's a lot of apathy, especially towards the electoral process. And some of it is not completely unfounded, but we should do our part in what we can do, being a body in the public eye. That's just how I feel.
All right, Sarah.
I was just going to say that I think this is a well-written resolution.
Choices in the jurisdiction they deem best.
No.
We just encourage people to vote.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was showing Mark something. I was just going to say I thought this was very well written, and I was going to thank Mark for writing it. And I do think it's very important that students are generally people are encouraged to vote from any and all places because we live in a democracy that only functions as a democracy when people who are part of it vote and partake.
Excellent. All right, Albert.
Oh, I'm now. Okay, well, in general, I feel that because the election is this Tuesday, that it's just too compressed of a time frame. I would think that maybe just dispense with a resolution if any would pass a letter, but no more endorsing, if now the main idea is not so much endorsing the particular issue, rather just encouraging voting. That could be done as a simple announcement. However, considering the progress with the referendum, it's a strange balance where you're encouraging voting when the students don't even vote in internal matters.
That's why we should do that, I think.
I think together.
So if the efforts to our own issues have gone so far almost ignored, then what is the impact of this an external issue, which in all likelihood, since it's considered that maybe if you're not a local, you shouldn't vote locally. So it's really broad and generic at the same time.
All right, so Megan is next.
Yeah, thank you again, Mahmoud, for writing this. It all looks good. I'm concerned about the last part of it. I'm wondering, just thinking about the circles that I run in and knowing how they like to act sometimes, whether we'll come under fire for saying it will, like, that Senate will not take a position as to whether Oberlin students, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. I think that's a simplification of the fact that we've had this dialogue. Like, it doesn't include that we have had this conversation about how contentious that topic is and how, like, we feel that people should be informed before, like, voting in local elections and, like, the impacts of local elections. We've had, like, a conversation about this before, and, like, some of us one-on-one, all of us together at some point in time. And here it's just like, we're actually not taking a position at all. And that makes me a little nervous just thinking about the way that people who are, like, activists or people who do stuff on campus will respond to that and see it as kind of like an inactive, sort of like very passive, very like hands-off-ish approach. And I don't know how much I care because it all looks really wonderful and I can't think of better wording. It's just something to be aware of moving forward is how we might be received.
All right, so I inserted myself briefly on Stack just to say something that came up, and it was an interesting perspective that I had not heard before. There was a fellow named David who came to a transportation meeting. He's been a resident for decades in Oberlin, and I told him that a lot of students are concerned, whether it's one issue or not, about voting on these kind of county-wide ballots. He said that's ridiculous. The college for years has been trying to limit the role of Oberlin students to just that students when you are fully citizens here and should have the responsibilities and also the respect that position is due. I think that everyone in Oberlin should vote. That's all I'm going to say. Next up is Sarah. Sorry, not going to clarify questions.
Did he run for city council last year?
I'm not sure.
Did he graduate from the University of Pennsylvania?
I don't know. I didn't ask. I wouldn't
You don't know it.
I know. That's good. What's that?
That's a joke.
Okay. Sarah is next.
I forget. Skip. Done.
Okay, Sarah done. In that case, I have Mahmoud.
So I just sent another clause to add to the end, which, Megan, I think your point is very on point. I don't know how to concisely articulate the discussion, and that's the hard part.
Yeah.
And I think, right here I write to make an informed decision. Like, what does that really mean? Like, you have to take into consideration, where do I spend the majority of my time? Like, where am I actually a member of the community? And that's just, it's a hard thing to write in this type of document.
Absolutely.
I think if people have issue with what we end up passing, if we pass it, we can refer them to the discussion, or we can personally talk to them to express the complexity of it. It is hard to encapsulate. Yeah, but thank you for bringing it up. I do think it's very important. And if everyone could just look at that thing for a second.
Yeah. So I think basically we just have to be prepared for student activist groups to come at us, basically.
Yeah,
and I think we should be excited for that. I think we should be excited for students letting us know how they feel about this, and basically not think how can we cover our tracks right now, but okay, how think about creative ways to try to address, like, look at this, say, what are the concerns that people might have with this, and how am I going to address these concerns if they're lobbed at me, you know? And I think just preparing, because I think that's really the best way to get our name out there, is basically say, like, oh, you have an issue with what we said, like, come and tell us. Like, we want to hear from you, we want to debate with you, we want to come to some sort of, you know, we want to find some common ground, basically.
All right, next I have Ben.
Okay, I was just gonna add on to what Nolan said a little bit, is that like, a lot of times at the college there's a big deal made out of the issue of students voting on tax levies and things like that. And we actually discussed it sort of in somewhat depth in a politics class I remember taking in freshman year, I think. And honestly, the consensus, as far as people can tell in the community from people who are from the community, is not like overly negative on students voting, and the college makes a much bigger deal out of it, it would seem, than it actually is. I'm not entirely sure that we need the last clause, because I mean, if we're specifically saying we don't endorse something, I don't think that's necessary. Like, I understand why we'd have it in there, but I don't know, since clearly we're not all in agreement on this issue. I don't know that that's really necessary, and I think maybe we should just replace it with something that just says, like, that we encourage people to try to make an informed decision on where they vote and what they vote on.
I think that's a good idea.
Next I have Albert. You skipped, then Anjali.
Okay, well actually the resolution that Mark just sent about, would this go in place of the former last paragraph, or would it be added
I
on?
was envisioning adding on, but now that you bring that up, we can talk about it. If people want to do that instead, I was never reading it.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying.
Yeah, I was just curious, because if this is going to replace the last paragraph.
Zachary.
Yeah, the last clause seems perfectly fine with me. And like, since it's been written, I think we should add it in. And I guess on the issue of like whether or not we should take a position on like where students vote, I think like ultimately like that is like a personal question, and like why would we take a like stance on it? And two, and there are people who like can't even vote in Oberlin or at home. Like I can't vote this year most likely because I'm an off-campus student. I don't have photo ID. If you don't have a driver's license and you don't have a proof of residency, you can't vote in this state. And that includes me. Despite having worked for elected officials inside of Ohio before, in fact that this being the only state I've voted in for the past, since 2010. Since I was 18. On all likelihood, I won't be able to vote. And there's plenty of off-campus students who aren't going to vote because it is so difficult. And rather than decide if we should take a position on where people should vote, I think we should make it try to help make it easier for people to vote in general.
Ty is next.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, instead of saying the Student Senate isn't taking a position, and in the vein of like trying to encapsulate that, like, we're having this discussion, I think something along the lines of, resolve that the Student Senate acknowledges that students voting locally is a complex issue that should be treated with care and thought, as like a last clause.
How's that different?
It's different in that we're not saying we don't take a stance, just that it's something that we have thought about and think is an important issue. But also, I would just say that in general, I think this smaller question is less important than the resolution as a whole. I'm not very worried about anybody getting upset about this really at all. I think voting's good. I think this resolution is good. I just don't want to get worked up over something that's not too important.
All right, I have Sarah next, and then is that a direct response from this?
No.
Okay, so Sarah next, Zach, and then Malcolm.
I was just going to say to what Ty and Nick were saying. If this resolution manages to get any hype on this campus, I will be very pleased, regardless of like what actual things are being said, because to be honest, I can see maybe 40 students like total actually bothering to read this all the way through.
It might not hurt to say something controversial.
Like, as much as I like to defend the work that we do will never read the entire canvas, and I really appreciate Mock's work on this.
Yeah.
Like, I think that we are nitpicking to an extent and fearful to an extent that just isn't necessary. And with that, I would like to propose that we close stack, and anyone who's on stack can say their bit, and then vote on this because I like it. So yeah, that's my proposal.
Do you, clarifying question? Yeah. Do you propose the original or the one, or do you propose adding the additional resolution that Mahmoud just sent out, or replacing the last resolution with that one that Mahmoud just sent out?
I would like to propose that we vote on this with the additional, but not with the replacement.
What?
So adding the part that you just said.
Simply adding it on, not replacing anything.
I have to take general feelings on that.
On voting?
On the proposal.
On closing stack, basically.
On closing stack.
Oh, wait.
It looks like that's thumbs down. Yeah, thumbs down.
I believe that a number of corrections are in order before we approve it.
Okay. I guess discussion continues, and I have. Yes, I got Zach next. I'll bring you after.
Yeah, so I just want to say the reason why I vote absentee and not at Oberlin College is not because I'm so rah-rah about, oh, I don't want to affect this process. It's more because I want to affect the process in my home and affect actually like Los Angeles city politics is what I'm really interested in. So I think I'd be comfortable with us taking maybe a slightly stronger stance. Maybe I like the idea, you should make an informed decision, but maybe we should, maybe we should consider saying if you are registered to vote in Lorain County that we would endorse you voting for this. I think that would be the best of both worlds. I think,
I hear that.
because my objection with this is, I don't even really have one. It's precisely what I was saying. I don't vote here because I'm so, it's more because I want to affect where I've lived for my whole life more. So, yeah.
Albert next.
First, a clarification from Mahmoud. The commas after whereas, are these required in every case?
Yes.
Why?
That's what we do.
And then the way that each clause ends, whereas I've seen official resolutions come from state governments, and usually they have each one end with an and, except for the one that's before be it resolved, is the next point, which stylistically, irrespective, however, there's no style guide provided in any of our documents.
Yeah.
And then I found a number of just things just there, my personal, why I feel might improve the document. It doesn't change the form, just a few additions. The first of which would be to change outdoor recreations to just outdoor recreation.
Can you say which clause you're in?
Okay, the first clause in the third line, change recreation.
Recreations. Gotta love your recreations.
In the second clause, before 3 hairs down, add A. In the third clause, I would change invest to pay, and also for considerations to revise the phrase a $10.50 annual increase from 2004 to clarify as to whether that each year it increases that amount or it's a general increase.
It's a one time.
What would that sound like?
Representing a total.
Oh, so take away annual and put a total of.
A total increase. A total increase of $10.50.
From the levy of 2004.
Okay.
And last change that I noted in the final given, so the second to last, the result that the student senate acknowledges that while it endorses the passage of the levy, I would change it will not to it does not, in keeping the style of the present tense singular verb. And the last given sentence, I added to before to make informed, just to clarify the subordination to actively engage and to make informed decisions.
Well, man. One second.
All right. Well, Mac, you're making connections, and if you are corrections, and if you're all finished, Albert, I'm going to move on to Megan.
Yeah, just want to be like, I don't want to focus too much on it, but just like the whole idea of like nitpicking and like worrying too much. I don't know how many of you are friends with the people that are usually most vocally opposed to the things that happen on this campus, or how closely you know them, but they will scrutinize everything that we do. And I just want to make it easier for us moving forward. However, I do see the value in like having a provocative statement on there. And I also know that like there's little that we can do without it being provocative, you know, like, regardless. But I just want to say like I was acting maybe selfishly because I have a lot of friends that will come for my throat, and maybe you all don't. But that was just where I was coming from in trying to bring that to our attention.
All right, thank you. So if Mac, you're on it.
So what are your thoughts on Zach's idea of changing the second to last clause to instead of will not take position, encourages students from Lorraine County to vote, and encourages other students not from Lorraine County to make informed decisions as to whether or not they participate here.
I like that.
I like it.
Okay. Gentlemen's feelings on that. Excellent. Okay. And Zachary, you are the last one, Zach.
Okay. Yeah, I guess everything is fine. Yeah, although like, what does even from Lorraine County mean? But like, I'm not gonna nitpick. Like, what's
Residents of Lorraine
No,
County.
what's the difference between someone who was like moved here 10 years ago versus someone who moved here 18 years ago?
Resides in Lorraine County?
We all reside in here though.
We do.
Citizens of Lorraine County.
We all sit.
No, we're not.
Permanently reside. Direct response from Albert or permanently?
Our direct response is exactly that. If your permanent residence
There we
is in
go.
Oberlin, Ohio, or in Lorraine County, and not temporary residents, all students can be considered as having a permanent residence from their usual home, not necessarily where they reside during the school year.
Okay. I'm just saying, like, to me, it's a meaningless sentence, but that's not going to change the way I vote.
All right, Ty, you're next.
Yeah, you could add just one word in there that makes it like if you like where you're from, like identity, where your home is like a very personal thing. Is if there's a way to add that in a very concise way of just like if you feel like if you believe, I don't know, something like that. I can't quite get the word in. But
What about to leave it up to students to identify this for themselves if you live in Lorraine County? If you live...
You are a self-identified resident of Lorraine County.
Self-identified.
Getting into identity politics here.
Direct response?
Yeah, I'm only nitpicking because, like, I have a permanent residence, but I've only lived there for 2 weeks out of the past 5 years. But, yeah.
like somewhere else besides in Oberlin, you mean, right?
Yeah, like what's listed
Yeah.
as my permanent residence. I've only
Yeah.
been there for two weeks of the past 5 years.
Right. So Oberlin feels like it.
So like it's, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
I'm coming for you. One sec.
No worries.
No, yeah. You're
Hurry up. God, you're so slow. You're terrible.
Can we add
Sarah, that's fucked up.
discussion? Adding what? Dead weight?
All right. So I'm going to make a proposal that we vote on the new revised resolution.
Point of order.
Yes.
General feelings on whether we could hear the text as amended
Yes.
before voting.
Yeah.
General feelings.
That's fine.
Sure. Cool.
After Mahmoud, you're done. Do you want to do the honors?
I would. It's like a baby. Definitely a baby, right?
This is gonna be a short plenary. It was never gonna be a short plenary, right? But discussion.
Okay, it's a long sentence. I'm gonna email it to you all so you can read it. This is what it says. Resolved that the Student Senate encourages students who self-identify as permanently residing in Lorraine County to participate in Lorraine County's elections and trust other students to utilize their good judgment and consideration prior to deciding where to vote.
Hot.
Again, I'm going to email that to you just
Wait, direct response, I would only the only thing I would change is self-identify as permanently residing. Permanently doesn't need to be there. Self-identifies as residing, I think could, or as being. I'm sorry, can you read that one sentence where permanent is?
Resolved that the
I know I'm
Student
being
Senate encourages students who self-identify as permanently residing in Lorraine County.
I think you could just say self-identify as residing.
Because permanent implies like.
Yeah, that just complicates the sentence even more.
Only
Yeah.
vote if you're here for the rest of it. Okay.
You can never leave.
If there are no further suggestions, shall we vote on this resolution?
Yes.
Yes.
General feelings on passing this resolution.
Do you want to see it first?
I'm passing or voting? I mean, not that it matters, I was just curious.
We trust you, Margaret.
Yeah.
Sorry, vote on it.
Should you? By the way, you'll just ban alcohol on campus.
Move on to a vote of this resolution. There we go. Thanks, Albert. Okay, do we do this blindly?
Do we need to do this?
She's just
By
answering.
it calls
Whereas
for different form
no
of vote
smoking.
than it is do by hand.
No smoking.
All right.
All
So if no one else, if doesn't anyone doesn't have any objections, we'll just do raise of hands. Aye, nay, abstain.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
All right. So all in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All abstentions? Excellent. The resolution is passed.
Under signatories, if you could put everyone's name that said yes before you put it up.
Sure, yes, you get that.
Thank you so much.
Which is
Yeah, I just sent it.
everyone but Albert, right? Okay. Just like to make it easy for him.
All right. Shall we move on?
Because I'd forget.
Shall we move on to the disbanding of working groups? Oh,
Yeah, no, that was, yes, we should, yes.
Okay.
And then I was gonna say, I have something to say about that.
All right, Nick.
I don't know if this totally resolves the issue, but we spoke about the South Campus. We're gonna agree to disband it for now, until we can get more support so that we can definitely have stuff deliverable every week when we meet. That said, we're not gonna continue, we're not gonna stop fighting, and we're not gonna stop having these conversations. We're gonna continue to try to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish with the working group through different channels. Basically, this isn't the last use of this. So I don't know if that resolves the whole disbanding of working groups discussion, but if it does, then
No, you guys
Okay.
weren't even,
oh sweet. So then I just hang on here.
to start off the discussion, according to our bylaws, every working group must meet every 2 weeks. Some of our working groups, and like officially I'm supposed to appoint the chair if you all don't meet, but like I have not been pointing because I understand that like we're all new and it's hard to get people together. At the same time, we have a crap load of working groups, and if that is not feasible for us as a Senate, we need to like publicly state that and disband the ones that aren't meeting. So this isn't like supposed to be like super punitive and obnoxious. This is, I have 2 options, which is to punish you guys personally or to ask us as an organization to reconsider what is feasible for us. So that is what I would like to do.
Can you punish me personally? I'd like that. Sorry.
That is on the record.
What's up, people listening? So we're gonna go to, I'm just pulling out the working group list. Also, to make it very clear, I must receive to my personal email account minutes from your working group. And because I have not been, again, I haven't been pointing for this, but I literally, no.
Oh, sorry. Who was listening?
It's like, again, it's okay, but I need to have these, and at the top of every one of the sets of your minutes, please put attending people, first put attending senators, and then put attending non-senators. And that is like, that's pretty much all I need, but I also need, like, I would like to see your minutes. So my personal email, svb@oberlin.edu. Super easy, just type my name in. There's no H. If you put the H at the end of my name, you won't find me.
Clarifying question real quick for you. So if I haven't been sending, because I've been sending them to Albert, so if you haven't been getting them, do you want my backlog?
Yeah,
Or
that
do
would
you
be
want
cool.
everything else? Okay.
But I won't retroactively meet you. So I'm just gonna go through the list of working groups and the ones that I know have met. I will state that I know they have met. If I don't know that they've met, this is your guys' chance to say that they've met or they haven't met. If they haven't met, I have to call for them to be disbanded, but that then goes to the Senate. So like y'all can choose to keep it around if you think it's like sustainable, but that's basically what's going on. So student health working group has met. Res Ed working group?
They've met.
Okay. EMT has met. Financial accessibility. Have y'all met?
Once. Yeah.
Once? Okay.
Our
Gotta
next
get that
meeting
up.
is on Wednesday.
Cool. Student engagement has met? Okay. Environmental sustainability?
Has not met.
Okay. I call for the environmental sustainability working group to be disbanded.
Can I just speak on that for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what basically happened is I've been unable, the transportation working group has taken a lot of my time up and I've been unable to do the environmental sustainability work on the top of that. And also relates back to my decision to talk to you all about being a green liaison. I decided after looking at my schedule that I cannot feasibly take that on. So I also moved to disband the environmental sustainability working group.
Alright, so.
Tragedy.
Yeah.
Is anyone else in the position to chair that possibly? I do think it's a shame to just
I know.
get rid of, I mean, if we can't, otherwise, then.
Clarifying sort of question, can these be reinstated?
Yes.
No, we'll take time.
So then, yeah.
Do you, Buffy?
Yeah.
Alright, so I guess we move to vote on the
Yeah.
disbanding of that working group. All in favor of disbanding the working group?
Yeah.
Oh, we have to formal vote.
Is it formal vote? So all approving?
Aye.
Oppositions and abstentions. Okay, not working. Yeah.
Against.
Against? Okay. The working group is disbanded.
So next up we have South Campus.
Yeah.
So we have to formally vote.
Alright.
So.
We'll be back, y'all.
Don't
worry.
Okay, so all approving?
Aye.
All opposing?
Aye.
Okay, and abstentions. Okay, that working group is disbanded.
Sustainable
I appreciate the
transportation.
big
It
political
was,
vote.
you know what I mean,
I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Sustainable transportation. SFC Senate tie.
Has not met. My fault. Just haven't done that. If
Okay.
you need to point me, that's okay. But
Have to have this
just
one, right?
what has to exist.
Yeah, we can't just. So.
To be honest, though,
We could.
to be completely honest, I don't know why we need it right now. Like, we could need it in the future. I can't figure out why Student Senate and SFC needs to talk. Like, right now.
Wait, what do you mean?
Because I just don't quite know.
That's like the whole reason you're on the SSC, isn't it though?
Yeah.
I think part of it is like the idea that they'd be paying us, but like they're obviously not
Bastards.
paying us right now. So like.
Strike.
The only thing I can think of is like to educate people, and then also just like if there is an appeal, to talk about it. But also it feels weird to like coordinate when you're doing an appeal. So I don't know. I don't know what an SSC student senate working group would do as of right now.
Yeah.
I think, and from what I've heard about it in the past, is it works to sort of talk about just sort of like general policies for the SFC and their like attempts and like what they're doing and keeping up with them, but also like talking with them about resolving issues and making their allocations process so that it more reflects maybe what the students want or whatever, or just raising concerns. Because otherwise, I mean, obviously people can raise concerns to the SFC itself, but I think in the past people have been not that like comfortable with that. And so I think when it comes to funding concerns, a lot of times groups will come straight to Senate. And so I think that's sort of why there's that way. Also, because like we appoint them, and so like in a lot of ways we sort of have to defend a lot of their policies. So it makes sense for us to have some way of talking with them about that.
Is it okay to I just have Albert on?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, according to the official rules, this unamended part, or Article 11, Section L, Part 1, the SFC Senate Working Group shall be the main body of communication between the Student Senate and the Student Finance Committee, And then it talks about the composition, which is the SFC co-chair, the associate liaison of the Senate, the treasurer of the Senate, the operations manager of the Senate, the committee appointments coordinator of the Senate, the student finance co-chair, so both co-chairs,
Right.
and then at least 3 members of the SFC, not including the co-chair, also the student treasurer and the assistant student treasurer. This seems to be a case of, is this actually necessary now, whether or not this should be removed from the bylaws? Obviously not at this moment. I don't suggest removing it immediately, but in the present case, it seems that it might not be.
Definitely doesn't need to be that big.
And furthermore, I mean, your job as the SFC co-chair is kind of to be the liaison to the SFC, surely. And whether or not you need a whole working group to address that, considering that we're also supposed to go to a certain number of ad hoc meetings and such. So that's my just general clarification on it. As written, all SFC is a body of communication, and whether we need that or not is to be decided.
All right, I have Justin, you're on staff next.
Yeah, I was just going to say maybe get in contact with whoever the person was last year, so that if there was some sort of necessity of the committee, we could know about that. And then, so then we wait to have the discussion of disbanding it until after we know if there was some necessity last year, because there may be some sort of, like once we're getting paid, there might be some reason for us having that committee. As of now, I don't see it, but there could be something we're not aware of right now.
All right, next up I have Zachary.
I strongly oppose getting rid of this working group and removing it from the bylaws because SFC handles, I don't have their budget off the top of my head, but they handle a very large sum of money, and it should be pretty vital that we be in communication and have and there be some active communication, whether or not it needs to meet every other week or if it needs to meet once a month. That's a different question, but just straight out disbanding it, I think would be a very unwise choice.
All right, next up I have Matthew.
I concur with that, and I would just suggest to Ty that you talk to Mimi and Patrick.
Yeah, I talked to them. They asked,
Pass
like,
the homie.
what's like, are we gonna like, we're gonna do a SFC student senate working group, right? Like we have to. So it's gonna happen. I think this is a case of me not being motivated to do one because to get it organized because it just wasn't one of like the pressing things that I felt like needed to be done. I think the working group needs to exist. It's my fault. So I need to look at the bylaws, see what all those positions are, send out the email and send out the when is good. And I'll do that. I don't think we don't need to disband it. I just need to step my game up. Like it's my fault.
All right, next up I have Albert, you're on staff.
After Ty's comments, I remove mine.
Okay, next up Nick.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's a reason why it's in the bylaws that this is a mandatory working group. It's not only about senators' compensation. It's about much more about how organizations on campus are chartered and funded. And some important work happens in the groups. I know there was a lot of stuff going on the last time I was on. So yeah, I oppose removing it anyway.
All right, Sarah, you're next.
I'd just like to clarify that I wasn't necessarily calling for it to be removed. And we clearly can't remove it. This isn't just a simple vote of y'all have it back for 2 weeks. And on that note, I would like Ty to know that you have until next meeting to get y'all together, or you will be appointed, because it's not something that can be disbanded and it has to meet. So yeah, that is my view.
All right, we have the last person on staff if no one wants to be added for this particular discussion of this working group. Albert.
Oh, yeah, just wanting to just clarify that this, according to the current form of bylaws, the Senate, SFC Senate Working Group has nothing to do with oversight of the SFC. It has everything to do with communication between the two. And so oversight, I'm not sure where, Ty, do you know what the oversight for the SFC is? Is that the Office of the Student Treasurer?
I mean, the oversight is we're like completely transparent in minutes and whatnot. We have a faculty advisory council that if we're like really screwing up monetarily, will like step in. OST does the budgeting. But yeah, Student Senate appoints the students on SFC. So and we have like the same way here, like an operations manager who appoints people who don't do their duties. But as far as like a direct oversight body, there isn't like one. Student Senate kind of, just by virtue of appointing people, gets to make decisions about who's on it. That's not really oversight. I think everything else is sort of self-governed. And also just like us, just being transparent, having students come in during office hours to talk about whatever they want to talk about.
And there also is the balance of Student Senate being able to hear appeals.
Yeah.
It's a check and balance kind of thing.
All right, so if nobody has anything else to say on that particular working group, shall we move on to the rest of the working group, Sarah?
Yeah. So next up we have transparency.
I can talk about that. We have our first meeting this Thursday.
Cool.
And I don't think it should be disbanded just because there are a lot of students interested in it.
Yeah.
5 p.m. here. Meanwhile,
Sexualized violence.
Hi. Yeah. Same with Ty. Kind of just like had a lot on my plate and like I'm doing way too much and that hasn't met. But on top of that, I was trying to get in touch with one of the like main figures in unrolling the new policy, Meredith Raimondo, and she only had one little green box on that when is good, which was a 2-week when is good. And I was just like, homegirl, that ain't gonna fly. And she was like, we can do a one-on-one. And I was like, I would really like that, and then report back to everybody else. So I don't think it should be disbanded. I don't think any of us think it should be disbanded because of like administrative and bureaucratic BS, but I totally will step up moving forward and like understand if you all feel like it needs to be disbanded because of a lack of action thus far.
So I guess this isn't like a formal proposal, but what I would say from my position is I would either like to give you a deadline or call for it to be disbanded. I guess I'm going to call for it to be disbanded, and if Senate chooses to keep it around, I'll give Megan a deadline. I don't particularly favor either one of those. I think it is an important working group, but it has to meet. So I would like to call for it to be disbanded, and then if not, Megan would within the next 2 weeks be feasible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm proposing, I guess. So.
Okay, this is for the disbanding of the sexualized violence working group. All in approval? All opposing?
Aye.
Okay, that's not disbanded. So 2 weeks from today, Sarah? 2 weeks from.
So not next plenary, but by the plenary after that, I need to have minutes.
Okay.
And then varsity athletics was formed how long ago? Because I know it wasn't
It was last time. It was
That's
not.
what
So I guess that was 2 weeks because we didn't meet last week, but it was fall
But,
break,
yeah.
so can we not?
Yeah, no. No, you're fine. I just
I have a
need
clarifying question. Am I on the varsity athletics working group?
You are.
Are you a varsity athlete?
Because no, I'm not. And that was the whole point. That's because we were like, oh, maybe someone who isn't should be on it, and I was like, I guess. But I haven't gotten any of the emails for it, so I didn't know.
Also, so you guys know, just to review what working groups have to do, they have to meet once every 2 weeks. If you are not going to be at your working group and you are on the website saying you are part of that working group, and you do not email me 24 hours beforehand or more. You can always email me more than 24 hours beforehand.
24 hours, gotta wait.
Look, if it's 25 hours beforehand, you're still getting pointed. If you don't email me 24 hours beforehand and you don't show up, you will get pointed. If you don't want to be part of that working group anymore, you can just not be part of that working group anymore. Like, there's no penalty for stepping down from working groups, but by putting your name up there, you are saying you are committing to be at that meeting. Also, like, you don't have to be there perfectly on time. If you are there 10 minutes late, that is okay. I don't need to know about that. Just show up to your working groups, be there, and send me the minutes once every 2 weeks. So yeah.
Corey.
Never mind.
Any other questions?
Just a quick question, Sarah, is that all we have for the working groups, or are there any more?
Yeah, those are all the working groups.
All right, then I propose before we move on to discussions that we take a 5-minute break since we've been here for about an hour and a half. All in favor?
Let's talk my
We'll be back here 8:30. So this is a proposal that we get Albert a gavel, according to his suggestion, so he can call the meeting.
I think that could definitely.
Wait, if I can have approximately 2 minutes, I can solve this solution for tonight.
Okay.
Just give me 2
Run.
minutes.
Absolutely.
There's some like
You as the facilitator at the gathering.
Okay, the facilitator.
Although maybe
That would be the proposal.
I love it. I really love the conversation. It's like
really makes your job
Everything else, I can
It's like a word. It's got a page in the handbook. I hope you have a handbook. I think it's like almost
Where, like, you can't comprehend it.
they actually, these don't change. Except this stuff.
oh yeah.
All right.
It's definitely
So it's
that does
good, but
change.
it's not really cool. It's like cherry. That's
That's like an hour. I mean, like, they're all fruity. What would you expect? Like,
Right, but I usually expect the fruit to be,
Well, I mean,
you know,
this is
somewhat mashed.
Orange is orange, red is red.
And white is cherry.
Yeah.
No, that's cherry, not glacial.
Glacial cherry.
Oh.
In my town,
Black cherry might have said.
Clearly,
I wonder what mudslide cherry tastes like. Or rainforest cherry.
green, brown. No, they all taste the same in your corner.
Ocean cherry.
Also, like the most brutal freaking
Just like to flavor something as glacial as
Everyone,
sweet
so I'm gonna
tea.
propose since
Wait, hold on. We got 2 more homies coming through.
2 more homies. Okay.
Why don't we get a smoothie in this time?
Megan's here. Actually,
Wait, hold up.
and Sarah will be in a second. Yeah.
I made a
Can we go
mistake.
live?
We can go live.
All right, we're live again.
All right. So I'm gonna propose, since we don't want to stay all night here, that we put time on each of the discussion points that we have.
Great idea.
You can decide that.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh
shit.
Where did she get that?
For the record, Sarah just produced a tiny little gavel.
There we go.
For the record.
So much.
Where did you get that?
Excellent. Okay.
Ex-school office.
Hell yeah.
I need that back though.
Yeah,
That works.
We need to buy something out.
Excellent.
You can't have it back.
Proper gathering technique. All right, so I propose we put time on each of the discussion that we can discuss, but proposal to put time on each of the discussion points. Oh, you don't have to do it much. Shall we say, I'm going to propose 20 minutes
per
with breakfast with President Krislov, 15 minutes for the others. 15 minutes for the other. 10.
Yeah, because the breakfast with Krislov was kind of a bunch of different points.
So do you want to put 30 minutes for that?
I didn't say that.
Tacos, yeah.
Suggestion we start with 15 for everything. If needed, at the end of each 15, we add more as we see necessary.
Yeah, we can repropose, yeah.
All right, excellent. So, Albert, thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, with that, we're gonna start with breakfast with Krislov. Mahmoud.
Okay, I took pretty meticulous notes on this, and I came away with about 20 different things we need to do. And so I'll just go down, and I thought the way this would work best is if we discussed it briefly and then had a point person for it. So for example, the idea of doing lunch meetings with DNSTs and select other administrators on specific topics. So on financial aid policy changes, we could have him and Dean Tremonte, and they would have lunch with a bunch of students and kind of do forums like that. So what do you guys think of? If we do that, I mean, I like that idea. If you like that idea, what other topics could we possibly discuss?
I like that idea.
I like the, I don't know.
You can.
I think.
Ben, yeah.
I think we can also discuss this further when we talk about financial aid stuff later. Sure. Okay.
Well, we have financial aid, and you were looking for other topics as well.
If there are other topics that people think would be pertinent to discuss in the immediate future. I'd be interested in hearing what those may be.
I think discussing the way that A, the process by which the college brings people to come and speak, and B, the advertising process that goes into telling everyone who's going to come and speak. And I'm going to leave that vague.
All right, yeah, Mike, we go in sec. Justin?
I was just going to say that if we have a point person for that, then every plenary, like the big issue could be the topic for that week's or like that month's lunch with Dean Estes. So we could just do it like as it comes rather than planning out ahead of time.
I like that.
All right, Zachary.
I didn't realize I was on stacks in the past.
Okay, Mike.
Okay, I think that's a very good point of discussion, specifically right now. So does someone want, well, Dean Estes isn't going to be here for 2 weeks. Well, he's going to be in and out. He's traveling. But who wants to email him initially and figure out what he thinks about this, when we might be able to do it and do food and stuff?
I'll do that. I'll also email Dean Estes about meeting with for the financial aid group. I think like if there's anything we need to email Dean Estes about after this meeting, I'll do it.
Okay. So I think you done for that. I'm gonna check.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah. So I guess my two questions is, because I missed part of breakfast. These are non-senator students for the most part. The idea is to get majority non-senator students. And okay. So then my other statement is there any reason why we wouldn't want to at least do the topics of our working groups as another way to bring different perspectives, at least as like a hypothetical list of these lunches?
I think that's a good idea.
Because I mean, when I talked with Dean Estes this week, I brought a bunch of student health issues to him, and one of the things he talked about was how students have a different perspective than administration. But I clearly can't represent, even as I represent the student health working group, everything on campus about student health. Just as Res Ed working group will never be able to represent everything that has to be said on Res Ed. So is there any reason why we can't use those as like at least a jumping off point? Yeah. Okay. That's my suggestion.
Jordan.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I just think some working groups won't really fund themselves to that. So like the SFC working group and the communications working group. But I think it makes sense as a starting point at least. And I also think Justin's suggestion is probably the best one because like week by week, I think that like talking with Dean Estes is also like going to be like very topical. I think. So when problems arise, like people really want to engage with them on the things that they're most passionate about at that moment. So keeping it like on a week-to-week basis or like a month-to-month basis, whatever it would be, seems to make the most sense to me.
So we move on. Yeah.
So you're on that? Okay, great. So Ty, you're going to take care of that. And on a similar thread, we discussed the possibility of doing a Finance of Oberlin 101 with the VP of Finance and Eric and Deborah Tremonte and members of the Financial Aid Working Group and anyone here who wants to come. So who wants to take task on putting that together?
I think that's all, like, that's what I wanted to email Dean Estes about, so it's like kind of the same thing.
Okay. Next we had Michelle Gross regarding laundry. Nick, you took care of that?
Yes, I'm doing that now.
Okay.
Yes. I'm covering that. Don't worry.
And for people who weren't there, if you have questions at any point about what we're talking about, just say so. This is about the fact that laundry went up 50 cents and it actually will go toward eventually new machines for us, but no one knows that, and so we think it's kind of a problem. That they didn't say that with the introduction of the new fee, so we just want to avoid situations like that, so that's why Nick's going to get in touch with Michelle Gross. Okay, next we want
just Albert on.
Oh, sorry.
I want to just let you know that just on that point that not only the price went, but now, for instance, in East Hall, 6 washers we have, 3 no longer work. They don't accept.
That's a work order issue.
Well, but I assume the company will fix them when they next come to remove the cord. They find none.
No, you need to submit just general knowledge here. Every laundry machine has a serial number on it. Under that serial number is the company's website, or somewhere on the machine is the company's website, and you have to submit it.
Well, I'm not going to, but thank you for that.
I mean, you know, it's your dorm. You have. Sorry, can I?
Yeah, you can go for it. That's right.
It's your dorm. You have entire control over how much care you put into your dorm. But along with that, there's also an entire plaque with it, usually in each of the laundry rooms, that explains it all. Anyone can do it. If you don't want to do it, your friend can do it.
Your RA.
Your RA can do it. That's always an option. That's
They get
usually
paid.
the one that people most opt to. But you know, we're all in this
Together?
together.
But also it is separate from a work order, so don't
It is
submit a
separate from a work order.
Alright.
front facts.
Oh, that was my question. Okay, you can take me off stack then.
Okay, next up.
Since we're airing dirty laundry, I wanted to say, I think it was a couple years ago, I saw a sign that said 90% of all the energy use goes towards hot water, so use cold water. If that's true, then why is it the same price for cold and hot? And like, are we like the?
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying the pricing on laundry in general doesn't make the most sense. Like,
Ben, you have a direct response?
I mean, it's because, the college isn't like providing laundry directly to the students. The college contracts a third-party company. And like, to charge for water and the temperature of the water makes it so much more complicated. It's just like not really like feasible, especially since the machines are like super simple. Like, yeah, it's like that's not up to the college, and B, like it's just not something that people do with laundry machines, and it's really complicated to do that. Because also like if you're like paying for laundry, there's no way for you to be like, oh, I like am paying for hot water, but then like you feel it's like not like there's no way for you to check. So like it's just not really like a concern that like can be addressed necessarily by the college. Like it's just not possible.
All right, so we're moving on to Megan. Be mindful, please, that we have already done 8 minutes on breakfast with Islam.
Oh my goodness. I just wanted to offer the fact that when I was an RA in Burton, which was 2 years ago, I guess, one of the sustainability hall RAs brought forth that there were these hand washers and hand dryers that are crankable, that are free, and that they have a couple of them. And they changed them like to some place in Burton or some shit. I don't know. It was all over the place. I was not invested at the time because I was just like, I don't do laundry anyway because I'm broke. Totally kidding, sort of. But anyway, I just want to say that that's like an option, and I think that we should publicize first check and see if these options are still available, and then publicize like, hey, we recognize that this is complete BS. This is why it's happening, and then this is an alternative.
Excellent. All right, Sarah.
So a couple things. The majority of what your laundry money goes to is paying for us to have the actual machines. 90% of the energy costs when you do a load of laundry do go to like hot water if you use hot water, but that is not necessarily 90% of the cost of laundry total. Also, those hand washers are available. You can ask a Zebra RA.
Yep.
They're in
Burton.
Zebra is
Burton,
Burton North Noah.
Obviously.
Obviously. You know, acronyms make sense.
Where's
They're in the North Staff office, so you can like rent them out for an appropriate amount of time. Also, there have been discussions about just doing a flat rate for laundry in the future, which would mean no more quarters or card swipes. You would just pay like X amount of money with your board, and then we would get laundry. So that is a discussion I've heard that Res Ed is having. That is not a discussion that is anywhere close enough for them to be making a decision or for us to really be worried about it. But like, if we really want that to happen, we could probably go talk to people in Res Ed. But other than that, I think that laundry's like not that big of a deal.
I have a clarifying question.
Yeah.
Do you know how that would apply to OSCA? Because board matters are kind of different with our cards and swipes. How?
Like I said, I think that this is like rumblings.
Okay.
this was just like an offhand comment
Sure.
that I've heard, and like we're probably gonna get there eventually. I'm sure that they'll take into consideration OSCA before it happens, and if they don't, Student Senate is here to help them out.
So I'm going to, Zachary, you're still on stack, but I'm going to propose we end stack on this particular moving with breakfast and Krislov because we are now over 11 minutes in.
Okay.
All in favor? Excellent. Zachary.
Very quickly, I think that's a ridiculous idea of charging a flat fee for laundry because it's just a way to drive up prices. That's it.
All right. Back to the next point in the discussion.
Next point is that we were going to talk with Sandia, who is the college's general secretary, to consolidate a list of committees. So I was wondering whether or not you'd be willing to send her an email and just like meet with her and talk about what that might look like.
Sandia
Suramanian, I think is her name.
Okay.
General counsel. I can send her.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
All right. 3 minutes.
So and we'll talk into that as to what exactly you want me to say.
We'll talk after.
Yeah, we'll talk after.
Okay.
All right.
Make a proposal we extend this by 5 minutes.
Yep.
General feelings. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Next, referendum. We talked about posing a question as to how difficult it is for people to remain on campus during breaks in a financial sense. I don't know how that works out in regards to this semester because as far as I understand, we weren't planning on running another referendum since we have been going concurrently, and that would complicate it a lot in terms of getting responses. So perhaps this would be something we have on for next semester.
With spring break in mind, maybe?
Yeah, with spring break in mind. So, yeah. So Nick, were you planning on staying for next semester? Or is this something we should? You don't have to like commit, which like general, if you're like leaning. I know you're a senior and you shouldn't go to last semester. But
That's I'm not prepared to answer that question at this moment.
Okay.
Just straight up, it might fluctuate a lot over time.
That's fair. I'm just asking because you're associated with something. It's like referendum thing. Since
Right.
we're talking about next semester.
Oh, would you like me? We're discussing the referendum for next. Yes. Okay.
Possibly, yeah. I just want to like take note of it and like internalize it.
Hey, I can start to try to figure that out.
Okay. Just think about it. We'll talk after.
Just a direct response to that point. I know we also talked about doing not only a referendum question in reference to this event, but also organizing some kind of informational session on the issue that students here who are staying on campus often don't have any idea what resources are available to them, dining and living wise, since all of the co-op shut down and all of the CDS meals go. And I remember, Zach, we were talking about perhaps doing an informational session or some kind of open forum where we would bring issues to the student body and perhaps some resources they could use, dining, living, etc., while they were here on campus over breaks. Yeah.
In that case, may I recommend that our outreach coordinators and events coordinators meet with the Res Ed working group to figure out what that might look like, and then come back next week to discuss what we might do for that for winter term in particular.
I'll come to that too as the OSCA team.
And can you put me on that covers?
Yeah, me too.
Who wants to send an email? Who's the Res Ed working group chair?
It's Nick.
Yep.
Could you put me in that email too?
And me as well.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Everyone who wants to.
So this is the email about.
We want to set up
Fall
a session
breaks.
to explain to people what resources are available.
Yeah.
I guess this time for winter term, but also thinking more broadly about the next.
Also add the event coordinators.
Anyone who wants to be there, raise your hand.
And then Ty, you have the floor.
I was just gonna say that Krislov was especially excited about this like host family idea, which I think is a very interesting idea. I think it's a pretty cool one. We should pursue it. I think it's a good way for like connecting with the community. It's also a good way for like students who need or want support, like to self-identify in a way. So I don't know if there's someone who wants to like take point on something like that, but just because it was something that Krislov seemed especially excited about, and I think that would do a lot of good things. Even if it's not every student who, like, I don't think it could be every student that has financial troubles over break, I think it could be something that's pretty awesome.
I personally wanted to take point on that point of order about getting resources and getting information to students who would most benefit from these kind of emergency funds and stuff like that. So I volunteered to be one on that. All right. Next up, I have. First of all, I propose we extend the time by 5 minutes since we only have 2 minutes left. You can end early if you need to. Next up is. Oh, how come?
I mean, like, we're like these kind of proposals like there for a reason.
We said we'd extend it if we needed it, and it seems like
this is our biggest.
This is like has a lot of things.
Like 20 minutes.
And I only personally have one more thing on this. So.
Let's get through it and move on.
Scratch that. Okay. All right, continue. Justin, you're on stack.
I'm skipping.
All right, then should we move on
To the next thing. Yeah, sure. If unless.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Okay. I also had the idea of collecting funds for an art fund, given the unaccessibility of some of the art classes on campus. It could be something similar to the book fund. So I was hoping that whoever took point on this could look into how the book fund operates. I guess it's an endowed portion of the budget, as far as I understand, and whether or not it would be possible to start something similar in terms of like how applicants are considered and stuff like that for arts in particular. So does anyone want to do that?
Good on that.
And then Corey.
All can do it together if you want.
All right. So I think.
Do you want to do this?
Yeah, I'll
okay. Gotcha. So Mahmoud and everyone, I think actually we, unaware, just moved on to be our art fund discussion. So we're moving quite well. That was up there separately. So cool.
Well, does anyone else have anything for the breakfast with Krislov that I missed?
No, we're not.
No?
Discuss that.
Yeah.
How would you guys feel about doing that monthly?
I would like that.
Great. Do it for the turkey bacon alone.
But can we make sure? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can I add something to that?
Yeah. He doesn't like to do dinner because his kids. He wants to spend time with his kids.
How dare no? Just I just want to say, like, I try not to be one of those annoying asshole vegetarians, but I don't eat eggs and I don't eat meat, so all I could eat at that time was like sweet bread that they have at Dascom, and like the whole point of me like being down to go to this breakfast was so that I could eat delicious free food provided by the president, and I was let down by that. So just like if in the future, like if people are asked like what their dietary restrictions are, it's nice to have those respected. Just saying.
Jordan, yeah.
Signed, hungry.
And, yeah, also 8 a.m. is going to be difficult for me month to month. Like, I did it that time, but 8 a.m. is actually like pretty, like, I like have to like reschedule the night before and stuff. Because like I'm up till like 2 or 3 normally.
Oh.
8 a.m. is like 5 hours, you know. So like brunch or like something wrong for me, and I think also my
Okay, since we're done with time, I'm going to propose to close stack with Nick and Megan on stack. I don't feel like exposing stack on this. Excellent. All right. So Nick.
Realistically, Kristoff is a very busy and pretty important man, to be honest. And for us to be able to have something like this monthly, probably we're going to need to be there. We're going to need to be able, or breakfast. It's going to be mandatory that, or it's not going to be mandatory. It's going to be necessary that we kind of work with whatever his schedule is. I know that it's not great that it's at 8 a.m., but once a month, everyone says suck it up.
It could be 7:30.
I mean, it could be 7:30.
Start their work.
You know, the earliest classes start at 8.
Marvin Krislov teaches a lot of classes at 8.
Yeah. And part of that is because he's got a lot of meaning.
Ew.
He serves on a lot of, frankly, national education boards.
He probably goes to sleep at
So you know.
Sorry.
Megan, you're up.
He's a busy guy, so, I mean, if we're going to be able to do this, like, part of it, we have to respect his schedule, and also 8 o'clock is the easiest that doesn't conflict with very many classes. Like, if it were at, say, 10 for brunch, it would
I have a 10 o'clock class.
Most people have 10, 11. if your
Can I
idea
just veto
is...
Mondays from now on and
I'm pretty sure
forever?
it'll always be Friday.
Okay, good.
I'll check on it.
Friday is okay.
Alright.
I guess the other thing I wanted to say is like I noticed that not all of us were there, and I thought that was actually a really good like accidental move on our part, because I think he might have been like overwhelmed if it had been all of us, and also just like it was clear that not all of us needed to be there in order to report back and like to have a productive conversation with him. So I wonder if moving forward we can like establish like a quota of senators that need to be able to make this breakfast monthly, and then figure out from there like who can attend, and then make sure that you attend at least 1 or 2 like moving forward. You know, if you haven't gone to one, you just need to be visible. You don't need to be there like all the time. That's not to say that you shouldn't be there all the time. Da 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 da.
Max, what did you?
I would just push back against that just a little respectfully, just because I know that he requests a list of names and he notices who's not there.
Oh, sure.
He looks at, like, he knows who's in the room at all times, right? And so just in terms of what he expects of us, and I think the fact that we like have access to him is a very important thing. Like, we should take advantage of that. And so if we have the opportunity to sit with him, like directly ask for things for an hour, then we should make an effort as elected officials to be there every single time if we can. If you can, I totally understand, because it is a difficult time, but definitely try, and we should all try to be there.
All right, so we have more hands. We have to, since we technically stack is closed now, we have to propose. Do we have a proposal to open stack? That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, next point. So did we finish our discussions of the art fund?
Yes.
I think so, okay, so next up we are moving to steering committee.
Yeah, so we have another listening sessions the student representatives do on November 18th and November 19th, and I was hoping that we could discuss ways in order to do outreach to get more people to come. I was thinking something along the lines of doing like specific like targeted outreach, because last time we had people come, but it was generally the type of people who were very active and involved in these things, and I love that, and that's great, but it's also bigger than that. It's the entire student body, it's the entire school. So I was just wondering if outreach in particular had any thoughts about how we should go about inviting people to this, in addition to like posters and all that stuff.
Jordan?
It sounds like a good thing for communications working group to discuss this week or next.
So you meeting this week?
Yeah, we should.
No, we met last week.
We did meet last week, but
Yeah.
You can meet more than
we can meet this week.
Yeah, if you want, if you feel like it.
Okay.
It was a sparsely attended
It was a-
communications working group, unfortunately. I also was not there.
Yeah, so
I'll just text it out.
just I think people need to realize how important it is. I think they don't at all. And when I was there, I was like, oh wow, there's a lot. This is some interesting discourse. A lot of things were said, and I only could go to one because I had co-op stuff the other day. But yeah, we need to, when we do publicity, we need to stress how important this is, and how if students are there's so much apathy, so many people feel they have no voice. This is a place where they actually do have a voice. They can talk to these people and they can say whatever they want. So I think that's something we really need to stress.
Justin.
Yeah, I was going to agree with Zach in saying not only targeting people, but doing outreach in the sense of awareness of how important, and I don't think anyone really knows what steering does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think same with advertising Senate, if you can change that, then people will come.
I was just gonna say, if you want to hit someone with something that's like gonna get them to pay attention, say that literally the college will cease to exist if we stay on our current financial model, because it's just becoming far too expensive. We don't have any money, and we're like cutting into more and more of our endowment. So within 50 years, Oberlin College may not be around if we do not change things. And so we need to like sit down and like talk about this, and it's very important. And so if that doesn't scare people into coming, then I don't know what else will. So those are the things we're talking about, and we need to
Sorry.
Guys, so 50-year reunion.
like, oh, where'd you graduate from? Oberlin. Oh, wait.
Mahmoud, do you realize how intransparent that whole kind of conversation has been? Most people see us as, number one of the most expensive institutions in the United States as far as private universities go. Also, we have a very successful Illuminate, Oberlin Illuminate funding campaign going on that has reached, I think, 230 of the 250,000 or $1 million like goals that we've seen. So as far as trying to reach out to students and say, well, we're really not financially solvent, might not necessarily bring with them. It's easy to point and say we're very expensive as an institution, and they also have this very successful donation program that's going on. Also, that conversation, I know only little bits and pieces about, and I tend to think of myself as somewhat informed. Not on every subject, definitely not, but I only know a little bit about this whole situation that we might be financially threatened. That hasn't been transparent at all with the student body, and it causes, I think, a lot of the questions about why Oberlin as a financially, or about the financial accessibility of Oberlin as a college, for its students especially.
Yeah, 2 points. I think definitely the cost thing is what's going to get to students. I think that's like what everyone is directly feeling and facing, and that's what hurts the most. And so I think you can grab attention that way. But in terms of like having enough money, even though we do have a very successful capital campaign going on, next year, if we stay on the current trajectory, we're actually going to be in a deficit for the first time, which means that we're spending more money than we're taking in terms of like how much we're pulling from the endowment on an annual basis and how much we have in tuition. So we're literally in the red starting next year. So I don't have like, well, I do have exact, if you want exact numbers we can talk about, that's like a bigger thing. But I do think that's a point of discussion, and it is our fault for not bringing that to the attention of the student body at large in a way that makes the facts transparent and easily accessible. And so like to me, I feel like because I'm like there, I see like everything and I'm aware of everything, and like I'm trying to show people, like make information easily accessible, and I feel like it is, but obviously everyone else doesn't. So that's a problem. And so like I'm curious, what can we do in addition or perhaps differently from what we're doing right now that would make this stuff more transparent? Because I think like listening sessions are good but not effective, because as you see, not everyone goes. I think putting things online is similarly good but not effective because not everyone looks. So what would it mean for us to be transparent in this process in a way that's like meaningful and tangible to students?
Next up is Ben.
I think to answer your question you just posed, I think listening sessions have the potential to be a really great way to get feedback from the students. I think, but clearly the issue is that students either don't feel comfortable or don't want to engage in listening sessions. So I think honestly what needs to happen is something less, not necessarily less formal, but some like forums more in sort of places where students are like more likely to engage. So like, I don't know how you'd organize it, but like more sort of like spaced out, maybe like a regular time every week. So like less like, oh, every month like we'll do a listening session. More like we meet at this time every week. If you have any concerns, please come by. Because I think that will be like, I think that's much more approachable from the perspective of a student, and also I think gives more of an impression that it's actually being listened to. Like we're like hearing you all these times, and then we're taking that and we're bringing it to the to the steering committee, as opposed to like, oh, we're like sort of like listening to you every once in a while, but like there's no impression of sort of like continuity. So I think a regular set time for this would be good, but obviously that's only going to work if people get engaged.
All right, next up we have Zachary.
Yeah, I guess on the topic of the solvency of Oberlin, I think when people hear that, or at least when I hear that, my reaction is like, if one of the most expensive colleges in the entire world can't stay in the black, then I don't feel a lot of sympathy, and I think that ties into why people don't go to listen to these sessions, why they don't read the Facebook group, because like there's a fundamental like, oh yeah, I could like spend my like busy hour during lunch and go to a listening session. At the same time, my voice like will be heard, but if you don't feel like your voice is actually going to have any impact, then why go? And I think that's how a lot of large section of the student body, like their voice won't be heard. It's going to come down to, oh, we wanted to do this plan, now we're going to do it. Now and we've had everyone's input. But like, yeah, I think students need to feel like they can change what's actually happening in the steering committee.
All right, thank you, Doug. Next, we have Kyle.
Yeah, a couple things. First, I just think in general, us as a group, as far as outreach goes, like we need more energy, and the group, like we need to put ourselves out there. We need to go to mud. We need to be like wearing things like loud and proud and like talking. I think we're a little too polite, a little too formal, too formal.
Yeah. Probably.
I think we could just do it like a lot better about just like speaking out, talking, like being aggressive presence on campus. I think we sort of started this year with that attitude, and like you know, the way normal things happen, energy fades. The other thing with the steering committee, Jordan, did we talk to?
No, I sent like an email to Dean Estes and y'all, and then no one replied, and that's kind of where we left.
So we need to jump back on that about getting more student access to the steering committee, student-centered access to the steering committee. Yeah, those are the things that I have to say.
All right, thanks, Ty. Next, we have Nick.
Take me off.
Okay. Next up, we have Megan.
Yeah, you can take me
You're off. Okay.
Hi. Okay. So someone mentioned that maybe we should do like a more weekly or more regular thing, which obviously won't work because there are members on it that are very busy, important people. So maybe what we could do instead, also because I feel like it's intimidating to talk to like these people who are like board members and trustees and just like tell them like this is what's wrong. It's a very confrontational like way to do it. Maybe people would be more comfortable if Senate did like small, like we would always obviously also do listening things if you wanted to talk directly to them, but if you're intimidated by that, maybe we could do like a Senate thing where we're like, okay, this is what's going on in the steering, we have that information, they tell us what they think, and then we could take it to them, like a more, the option is always available if you want to go to the steering committee, but there are also the people who are intimidated by that, but who are less intimidated by us because we're their peers. Like, maybe that could be a viable option.
Anjali, the steering committee is not, or the listening sessions are not with steering committee like members or board of trustee members. The listening sessions are Mahmoud and Sophie Davis and the other boy whose name I never remember. Ryan, who are on the steering committee. So it's just Mahmoud, Ryan, and Sophie who are the student members of the steering committee, not the like 34 other board of trustees, president, blah 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 people.
Okay. Next up, I have. Sorry, just checking here. Who is it? Who wanted to speak again? Sorry.
So Bach, you were talking about like how to get info out to students besides the like online or through postering. And is there any reason why a monthly letter to like say Fearless and Loathing, who has a representative in the room right now, would like not be something, because that's a way for students to engage who aren't directly looking for that information. And I think a lot of the problems with like getting specific groups information out to students is that students either don't know or don't care to specifically look at it until like a big decision is made, and then the reaction is reactive rather than trying to get in to be participatory. And by mixing it in with other information that students are engaged with, Fearless and Loathing, the Great, like Wilder Voice, the review. These are all things that like we see on a daily basis. Like, for God's sake, put it like right after the centerfold of the Great.
Put it on the centerfold.
Yeah, just try to replace the centerfold of the Great.
Write it all
Have
on their
me in the
bodies.
centerfold holding a piece of paper.
What if we do the referendum with the centerfold?
I asked the group about doing a student senate centerfold. They said the wait list is extremely long. So it would already be over by the time we did it. I asked them if we could maybe
For the
like jump the
semester?
line. I was like we're a student senate. No.
We could do it.
I'm so glad that you did that.
So, along the lines of steering committee, I'll just go right ahead and say it. My dad is actually on the steering committee. So if anyone here would like to talk to a member of the steering committee who's also a trustee, I can give you his email address, and then if he doesn't answer you, I can pressure him to answer you if you guys have any specific questions. I've tried to be very like hands off about that because I don't want anyone to, accuse me of nepotism or anything. But at the end of the day, I think he's a good guy. He's a straight shooter. Megan can vouch for that if she wants. She's met him.
Chris is a sweet angel, just like Nick.
So yeah, I mean, he's a good guy. He's also my dad. And yes, if you guys have any questions for like that you would like answered by a member of the steering committee, like let me know, and I can put you in touch with him, and he will tell you what he can. So and that's a good resource because we're talking about approachability. Like, who's more approachable than a dad? My dad's just a big, goofy Oberlin student at the end of the day. He's just grown up. Like.
He's a sweet man.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. So we have about a minute left, so I just want to say something very quickly. So it seems like there's tons of different strategies for how we can improve the kind of outreach. We've had great suggestions and everything. I'm thinking that... What's that? Okay, I'm thinking that if anyone has a specific strategy in mind, we can either extend this discussion now, or I'm wondering if we can talk to you afterwards or email.
Or come to the steering meeting.
Yeah, well, I have a quick thing that we can think about and maybe talk about next week. If anyone's interested in this, I could ask my dad if he wants to do an AMA on Reddit, or like I could be doing it and be asking him questions, or like some sort of AMA type.
What's an AMA?
Ask me anything. Yeah, sorry, I should have been more clear.
It's
Basically,
like an interview.
yeah, it's basically
That's
like people,
so cool. I
people
wanna
can
do
post
that.
questions on a Reddit thread.
All right, guys. So
AMA, ask me almost anything.
Oh no, you can ask him anything. I just won't guarantee he'll respond.
That's fair.
So we've officially run out of time. Now, do we wish to add more to this discussion, or
No.
yeah, excellent. All right, proposal to move on to the next point.
Holla.
Excellent. We're good. Excellent. So that is the Saxgate. Do you want to add something, sir?
We should
no,
be
I
aware.
just have a question of how we focus this discussion, because I think there's a lot of different places this discussion could go. There's a lot of different feelings on it. If I could ask that we focus on how we would like the college to handle, how we would have liked the college to have handled this, like what we think would have been the best way for the college to do this, that would be my favorite way to do that, but that's also just me.
I was also anticipating, it's times like these where like the whole student body gets together and actually starts talking about stuff like on social media and in person. These are times where like the March 4th incident like a year and a half ago, these are times where like there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of talking going on, and it's very important with like you only have a certain amount of time to harness that energy and direct it to somewhere productive before everything starts descending into chaos. So I think we're at that point right now, and we as student senators should take an initiative in trying to harness that energy. And I mean, I've been thinking about ways that we might do that, but I'd also like to hear from everyone else.
All right. So actually, shall I make a proposal to open Stack on this? Yeah, that's okay. Sorry, I just realized we should open Stack. All in favor of opening Stack? Excellent. Time is started. Anyone up? Megan.
Yeah, right, surprise. So I guess my biggest issue, which is like definitely not the most important issue at hand, given like the way that everything like went down, was just the fact that the reporting and like advertising was really biased, and that students weren't informed of like both sides of the coin. And I think that's really important in a school like Oberlin, where we encourage dissent and we encourage people to think outside of the box and think critically, all that bullshit. But then only go like to have this event advertised as, only encouraging like the celebratory accomplishments to be thought about and to be like digested by the student body, without for once mentioning all of the other aspects of this person. And it just leads me to, I don't know, it makes me nervous moving forward, and seeing where the school and like how the school will advertise other events to us, and like what that means for the student body, and whether or not I can like trust that there is like an unbiased and like holistic approach to everything. So
Anjali.
Oh, I wasn't sure if I got it. Okay. Well, I mean, I totally understand that, but to an extent it will be biased because, I mean, you're asking like theoretically important people to come speak. And like, I mean, if you read any of the advertisements, they're all celebratory. None of them talk about any of the bad things they do because like, they're brought in for educational purposes. They're brought in because the school wants to show its students that it can get impressive, important people to come. It is biased because it's meant to be biased. They're trying to say that they bring good people here. They're not trying to like say that they bring.
Well, I have issue with the word good also, but yeah.
Okay. So sorry. Next up, I have.
I thought you were gonna stand up.
Not exactly, yeah. I respectfully disagree with my friend in regards to the college's role in all this. I don't think it's feasible to expect the college to make disparaging or
Not disparaging.
not disparaging, but point out criticism of speakers that it brings in inherently in the advertisement that it puts out. Just because I think, I mean, just for obvious reasons, like that's not how institutions work if they're trying to get people to come. I do think it's very important to highlight dissenting voices, and I think that students did a good job of organizing around that. I have issue with how the protest went down specifically I think that's the point of like the college. Like the college brings someone in, that's their role. They should be most effective at making sure they can bring in influential people. Whether people think that's good or bad, that's up to interpretation. But the important thing is that it's up to interpretation. They bring these people in, and then if we have opinions regarding what they've done or what they say, then that's our role. That's the role of dissenters to voice that, and so I applaud that. But I don't think it's feasible to expect the college to put that in the advertisements just because, I mean, all those people aren't going to come. I mean, I'm not going to say that, but go ahead.
All right, next up, Zachary.
Hi. So I guess first thing I want to say is the fact that the reason I was late was because I elected to go to a economics major meeting, and I specifically asked them what they thought about SACS and the protests, and to be honest, there weren't any extraordinarily strong views. Like some people were like, yeah, I went to the talk, it was fine, or it wasn't fine, and the protesters think they should have stayed, or I think they should have, or I agreed with the college and they had a right to bring SACS because I thought the talk was good, but there was no dominant theme or dominantly strong feelings one way or the other about SACS's talk. And personally, I was I like Carl Rove's talk better. He came in 2010, to be honest, than SACS. Just because I actually, Rove had things that were interesting to say. SACS didn't really, and I think how people are reacting is kind of over. No, I don't want to say that people are over embellished about it. But so it was a protest. They said we're protesting. They dropped some banners, then they left. And of all the things that happened, that's pretty mild, I think. And I will. Yeah, I mean, as someone who's read a lot of, I've read SACS's economic literature and whatnot. So I'll say things later because I have a lot of opinions. Okay.
All right, 10 minutes. Next one, Zach.
Okay, so this is actually what you brought up, Megan, was something that I believe you and I were discussing with Krislav. And what we're trying to say is we're not saying they need to write disparaging comments on the literature they hang up. They just need to be somewhat more neutral because some of the stuff it was he battles poverty. It's just
he's a leading expert in the fight to end poverty.
Yeah, and if you guys some of it. So
it's ironic to a lot of people to hear that. Sorry.
Basically, I don't know if you guys read a lot about. I mean, I'm not really a big on political economy, but Jeffrey Sachs is for kind of the privatization of aid for pretty much all the continent of Africa. There's some very strange stuff compared that, in my opinion. But at the same time, and another thing Krislav said was he thought you need to. I think that nonviolent protests is free speech and should be protected, and that what the protesters did was completely kosher. And Krislav didn't feel the same way because now he believes it's going to be harder for us to get speakers to get convocation speakers, and maybe he is right. And to some extent, I agree with him, and I think it's somewhat naive of the protesters to do a walkout and not listen to what Sachs had to say. And in fact, if anything, it makes us all even more vulnerable because I heard he just spent like 15 minutes addressing every complaint that they brought forward before, at the beginning of his deal, and I have to say that's somewhat foolish. But I think we need to protect free speech, and I think the college needs to. The college needs to not they need to be either less implicit or explicit about in their support of people that in this manner. I don't know. It's something, but I'm not saying we need to outright disparage them because I agree that's not viable, and I want dissenting voices to come to Oberlin College because we are naive if we think that the whole world is like Oberlin College, and we go out into the world and people disagree with us, and they will almost everywhere. And that's something that we need to be ready for, and I think a lot of people are not ready for it. A peer of mine was saying that they believe that we should not have even brought Sachs at all. And Sachs is relatively mild politically to some people that we could have brought and some people that we have brought before. So I think this is probably a conversation that we'll continue to have. And Christoph has said that we could all suggest convocation speakers to him. And he was not kidding. He's like, please email me. We need ideas. He said just anyone that you think will fill Finney, you can please email him. I'm going to actually email him. I have a few ideas. But yeah, I'm just saying, this is something we can continue to talk about. But yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. Nick.
I very much agree with Mahmoud in a lot of regards as far as like trying to emphasize and to attract. It's not like we attract or it's not like we pursue someone to speak at Oberlin on a neutral basis. Like, we're attracted to them as a speaker because they're influential in some way or they have some kind of power. And so to kind of put that as really what their accomplishment is that that drew us to them is really, it makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, I can agree that saying that he cured poverty for a large amount of people is a weird way to phrase it. I kind of it's you know, whoever designed the poster, that's what they chose, and it was a questionable choice.
Yes.
Also, I'm of course in favor of free speech. I feel like that's saying I'm in favor of education. Duh. But it's also recognizing the spaces that you like utilize free speech, and I think inside Finney Chapel, to try to stage a protest during someone speaking is fairly disrespectful. Staging a protest outside of Finney Chapel and then moving in as it starts is fine. And then proposing really challenging questions, I think, is a better way to do it. This is not a new situation for colleges to face where a politically charged student body attends something, protests in the middle of it, chases the person off stage like Carl wrote. This isn't something new. And it can be, like, I agree with Christoph in a lot of regards that it can be very damaging it can be damaging for the reputation of the school if the student body doesn't present as much respect for that person's voice in that space by recognizing where it's appropriate to protest and where it's not, and when it's appropriate and when it's not, and how. Not to try to police anyone's speech or anything, but like, even if this person is very disrespectful to many, many countries and the people that live there, I think it's important to let them speak and then to challenge them and express our disagreement with them in a more respectful manner. And to protest outside is a better way to do it, because then you don't chase them off stage, which means they got the money already, and like there's this issue of you pay them money and then you chase them off stage after 15 minutes and they already have the money and they're taking it and running. And that's one of the things that I disagree with.
Nick, do you have a direct response?
Sort of. So basically, I think it's important to remember that these protests were not necessarily to go and critically engage with this dude.
Yeah.
They were, I think, in a large part because students felt offended by his presence here, and I'm not going to speak on that because I'm not a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's definitely helpful to recognize that there was a large part of students who were just like, this is like offensive to me at the end of the day, and whoever wants to correct my use of that term can do so. I think it's also to the end of free speech. I think what Megan and I we were talking about this recently is we wanted to maybe set up a space. Students feel like it's very difficult to mobilize politically here and to get protests together. So I think it might be useful for us, and I think honestly we have an obligation to set up a space where students can come and organize, and like on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis where you can say, like, if there's anything that you have this coming up that you want to organize a protest for, this is the space to do it. And it's not necessarily us sanctioning the protests or saying that we agree with them or disagree with them. It's saying, like, we believe that this discourse is a vital part of our school, and we're committed to providing a space where students can organize for that. And the other thing that I have to say is that whether you're going to protest or not, it is always important to keep in mind the effect that your protests are going to have in the real world. And if that effect is maybe that it's going to be harder for Oberlin to get people to come here, I just think that's a reality that you have to face, that we all have to face. And whether or not that changes your decision is up to you. But I think if you're going to stage a protest, you have to admit to yourself, like, all right, this is going to have some effect on the way the outside world views the college, and I think just you got to be prepared for that.
All right, excellent. So before we move on to the other people on staff, considering we had less than 3 minutes and there are still over 7 people on staff, I propose we extend this by 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The meeting officially will be over 3 minutes.
We can extend the entirety.
Right, we need to do that.
Okay, so shall we extend the entirety of the meeting?
The last thing to talk about, right?
30 minutes?
Still have an Ian.
Can we table the other things or no? Is that
Yeah.
yes?
I'm
Table
gonna
them for
say
next
that
week.
after this discussion, just so y'all know, I have to go. I have other obligations.
All right, should we vote now that we table the other discussions? Okay,
I like
so we are
that.
gonna-
If not this one.
Yeah, we can also table to continue this discussion.
But we might as well.
I would
like to finish.
No, you're right.
All right, so proposal to finish this discussion now, extend the meeting by, say,
As long as needed.
as long as needed to finish.
Conclude business to table and conclude business, so it's about 5 minutes.
Okay, so we are extending this particular discussion?
No,
Oh,
I'm saying the
sorry.
meeting 5 minutes.
Meeting
No, I
5 minutes.
propose we extend the meeting till 10. Like, I might peace out earlier, but I think that that's.
We can all peace out earlier if
We can always leave earlier.
Yeah.
Meeting is extended till 10. Excellent. Oh, okay. Excellent. That's passed, and the this particular discussion, wait, and to table the other.
The financial aid and the awareness drive.
Is that it? Okay.
Yes, just for the record.
We have a thumbs down. Yeah.
My personal opinion is that those other two discussions are a lot more pertinent and productive for things Senate can actually do versus this current discussion, which feels kind of like talking about something that's really interesting and pertinent, but like I don't think we're really doing much.
Like a direct response.
Yes.
I think we are so close to the deadline at this point that if we could end this discussion now and start up on those two, but we'd still be here until 10:45. I think it's actually doing justice to those two other topics to move it to next week so we can make sure we have enough time to discuss it.
The two other topics are
Financial aid, the DOFA, and then the awareness drive.
No, those are two things.
What's the
Financial aid,
DLF?
that's the defensive financial aid.
Yeah, the
Defending
defense of
of
financial
financial
aid.
accessibility.
Yeah, defending, that thing, and then awareness drive.
and you think those two things are going to take a long time?
I got correct.
Yes.
I think those things are going to take longer than till 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, so to propose to table those two discussions till next time. Excellent. Okay, meeting is extended till 10 o'clock. Continuing up the stack. Next on stack is, oh, sorry, point of order. Nick, do you want to take yourself off stack? Or do you want to keep yourself in the stack since that was a direct response?
What am I on stack?
You are on stack,
Oh, no,
from the end.
I just spoke. Oh, third from the end?
Third from the end.
I thought I just spoke. I thought that
Yeah, no,
was
no, you were a direct response. That was a direct response.
You were like,
So I'm
somewhat.
asking if you want to stay. Do you want to stay in the stack or?
Take me off. If I need to go back on, I'll go back on. Let's just move on.
Good, sounds good. Okay. Next up, Sarah.
Let me collect my thoughts for a second. So, I guess the reason I asked the question at the beginning was I definitely feel where Megan was coming from, and I was more wondering if, as a body of student representatives, and also sort of where Nick is coming from, I really like having controversial people on this campus. I think it is really good for us, and if I am, first of all, I've raised this point before, but you look around the room, if you look around our campus, if we had brought in an economist whose policies generally the student body would agree with, and then asked yourself what percentage of the student body was talking about economics at this moment, the answer would probably be the econ department and maybe the politics department. Whereas now, at least every student, I think, has at least somewhat engaged with econ this past week, and as a liberal arts student, that is why I'm a liberal arts student. Like, I live in the science center, I study science. I could have gone to a state school and just completely done science and not heard anything else about any other subject. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to engage with other subjects, and especially as I get further in my major, like, that becomes harder because I get into more interesting, like, science things. So I really like having controversial people on campus. I think it's good for the student body. I also like having controversial people on campus because I know why I like my ideas. You can come at my ideas slightly differently, but I'm still gonna agree with you. Having someone come from a completely different direction challenges me to think of arguments for why my ideas are still good. So as a critical thinker, that also I think is very important for all of us. In that light, my question is, what can the college do? Because I think that just praising people doesn't promote critical thought. And I think that that's a lot of what the reactivity was too. I didn't love how the protest went down, I was not there, but I do think that not engaging with a speaker and purely being offended is both not fair to the rest of the student body, as well as not encouraging yourself and others to really think critically about these issues. And I think as a student senate, it is entirely possible for us to think of things that we could ask the college to do, whether it's having a week before a convocation speaker comes, having like a briefing meeting about both sides of the issues that this convocation speaker covers, having a debrief, having resources. I can see where they came from by not advertising on paper, like, or on the website, the opposition to SAC's ideas. I can see how that would be upsetting to a convocation speaker, and that wouldn't necessarily be good for us pulling in convocation speakers. But there are ways for the college to support us that we can ask them to do that I think would make this more feasible for students to go listen to controversial convocation speakers. And like I said, I really like the idea of having them here. So I guess that's why I asked the question at the beginning, and if we do anything as a body, like a Senate body, that's where I would like our actions to go. Creating a space for students to interact before or after with the facts that we're being confronted with ideas that don't necessarily match our own. That's what I have to say.
All right, thank you. Corey.
Jeez, when am I gonna?
I like most things people have said already, but I guess I have a slightly different perspective in that my mother works in administration at another college that is pretty similar to Oberlin, and while I think it's highly important to get a two-sided perspective before somebody comes, it can be very difficult to get, as Krislov said, if you're inviting someone to come and speak to us, even if like the student body is probably going to dislike them a whole lot, you do have to, I guess, sell them in a way that they would appreciate. I cannot imagine when Rove or Ron Paul came that we didn't write anything that wasn't very kind to their positions. And then just that furthermore, Krislov mentioned how I think it was Lawrence Summers, someone named Summers. Larry Summers.
Same shit.
Exactly. Who got a very negative reception when he came here. Yeah. And like what happened with Sachs isn't the worst thing, but I think people feel that this really won't have any repercussions, but we, I guess, can know that this does reflect poorly on the college, and I guess maybe people don't necessarily care about that, which is their decision to make, but I think it would be important to emphasize that this truly does reflect on the college and the speakers that we can bring and the quality of the speakers we can bring on top of that.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Ben.
Okay. So I was at the.
Am I on stack?
I was at the Sachs talk for the whole thing. It was interesting. I think to build on what people have already said, I think with convocation, there's a tendency for them to be sort of like isolated events that aren't really related to any other discussions on campus. Largely, I think because they're just whoever the biggest people that the college can get to come, which I think is important. I mean, obviously you want like important people to come to campus. But I think also, especially with someone as complex in his views and his accomplishments or crimes, if you had persuasion, as Sachs, I think you do a disservice by not providing some sort of larger narrative. So I think like, I mean, for posters and things like that, in terms of how he was publicized, I think there's like not so much the college can necessarily do. I mean, like pretty much everyone who comes to talk here is like coming here to publicize something. Like in Sachs's case, it's his like continuing efforts involving sustainability with the UN and stuff like that. So like that's directly where the tagline for his posters came from. They come from his like current like campaigns in the UN. Like, and that's true of like most people. They're like promoting books, like whatever. But I think that there's definitely a role for like, especially like professors. Like I think a lot of people who I don't really know, but I know I've talked to a lot of people who had no idea about the Sachs thing, and then only found out about it when certain professors like emailed them and said like, oh, like this could be interesting, like check this out. And I think the college, when they bring someone as controversial and complex as Sachs, has a responsibility to provide like a larger way to engage on the issue. Like, so like you could even have just like a couple like smaller events, maybe run by professors, just sort of like discussing these issues leading up to it. Like, and I think that would be good because it would lead people being more informed and more able to conduct like a good dialogue. But it would also, I think, engage more people in it. Like, you're more invested in it if you're like, you know what, I'm gonna like educate myself on this issue and I'm gonna go to these talks and then I'm gonna go to the confiscation, and it makes it like a bigger deal. And I think also like professors, I think, have a responsibility to publicize this, and I think the college needs to do a good job of like involving professors in this. Like, because I know from my classes, I have one professor, my advisor, who straight up like emailed a bunch of us like, hey, like this is a very well-known neoliberal economist, like you should go and like check it out and like maybe ask some like pointed questions. And then, but like I also had a bunch of politics professors who like, someone brought it up even in a class and they're like, oh yeah, he's coming. Like, like that, like we're discussing like, Eastern European like political development. You didn't think to like maybe mention that Sachs is like coming, who was like a huge figure in that. And so I think there needs to be more of a dialogue in that way between people who are interested and very knowledgeable on the topics that these convocations are discussing, and the people who are actually like logistically bringing the speakers. Yeah, I think, although also, I mean, I think it's tough because like a lot of times it seems like these, like the protests that happen in these sorts of situations are generally like a smaller group of people. So I think it has a tendency to like sort of like separate to like us versus them, where like people are like, oh, I'm not like a part of that. Like I'm doing something else. And I think that inevitably not everyone's going to agree on any protest and how it's conducted. So like in terms of like, there's nothing you can do to like limit protests. And I think it's like, you get into like a super gray area once you start discussing like what is appropriate and like what is okay. And yeah, I think it should ultimately be up to the individual. Like unfortunately, like sometimes like stuff like this might happen where a lot of people are upset, but like I think in general that's like very much in line with Oberlin's ideals. Like we espouse the concept that we teach people to be responsible citizens and to be responsible community members. And so I think that we should practice what we preach there. And like, while you might be upset with a protest every once in a while, like you still do have to realize like, yes, but this is like something we do for a reason. Like there's a reason you have the right to do this on this campus.
All right, excellent. So I'm just going to take the liberty of reading out stack at the end and also let people, just so people who know who's on stack and what order they are. And I also want to let people know that we have 18 minutes left. And so I feel that also anybody who has to go should be able to go now. I think we've extended well beyond what we need to do. All right, because we have 18 minutes, if we can all be as trenchant as possible, that would be great. Excellent. So I'm going to read stack. Next up, I have Jordan, Megan, Mahmoud, myself, Zachary, and Nick. Anyone else want to add themselves? Propose.
I kind of want to propose that we close stack unless anyone else has anything to add. I'm just really scared about time.
Proposal to close stack. Excellent.
I'm actually gonna have to run, guys.
Oh my god.
You should feel bad.
Okay. 17 outs. Jordan.
Yeah, so I think that it's definitely important that as a student body and also us as like representatives of that student body, we apply really close scrutiny to like this speaker series and who the college is spending money to bring a speaker on campus. But I think that it's probably unrealistic to hope that they put like dissenting voices straight up on the poster. I think more importantly, we could demand that they kind of separate, between maybe the apparent or the debated goodness of a speaker versus their influence and power, because I don't think anyone could realistically deny that Sachs is a very influential and powerful dude. But then to extend that to like, moral claims about like how good or bad his policies are is where the college gets into the gray zone. Yeah. So I think that we as a body can kind of, and I think Senate specifically as a body can like look at the way we're advertising and like get on the administration's ass when they're like starting claims about whether or not their speakers are good, and especially when their claims go beyond just talking about influence. I also think that's important for us to apply scrutiny to when speakers on the left wing come, and if they're going to talk about Sachs like he's God's gift to the universe, then when a speaker from the left comes, then they should definitely do that too. And if they don't, then we should call them out. I also think that I really don't want to get into the business of like talking about like what the protesters should or should not have done, as long as I'm not a member of the protest, because I just like historically like the rhetoric of respect has been used to like stifle so many like totally historically valid protest movements. So like as soon as we start talking about that, it's just like really problematic for me. And I also don't really understand what people mean when they say like this reflects poorly on Oberlin. Like, what do people expect when a neoliberal comes to Oberlin? Like, the student body is going to get mad, the student body is going to express that anger, and then like Oberlin's reputation, which the administration tries to cultivate, is going to be preserved as like a progressive institution with like a really radicalized, politicized student body. So like, I really don't know what the point of like all of this like I don't see where like the controversy is actually coming from. Like to me, this is exactly what I would have expected to go down as soon as like Oberlin invited the neoliberal economists to come, and I'm happy that's the way it went down. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Jordan. Next up, I have Megan.
Yeah, I love you. 2, that's 1. 2, I think I just have been hearing a lot about like why, like about like pontificating about the protesters' actions, and I totally hear the whole shit about respectability politics. And I just want to speak to the like experience of a protester as someone who was partaking in that action, and people who are like, why did they leave? Like that was really disrespectful, and all of those feelings. It was because there were 2 other events that were happening at the same time. One being Carry That Weight, which is a response to sexualized violence on college campuses, and the other being Black Lives Matter, which is a response to like the prison industrial complex and the like criminalization of Black bodies, and also just how they are targeted and often just like how there's a genocide on Black bodies. So that was those 2 discussions were happening at the same time as Jeffrey Sachs' convocation, and with the logic that this man has been heard loud and clear since the 1980s at the very least, these other people that are coming to campus need to be heard as well, if not louder. Their voices need to be louder in a time like this, and that was the impetus behind leaving. It was not to be like a big fuck you to Jeffrey Sachs, at least coming from me. But I know that a lot of students who were part of that organizing wanted to have an action that was more aggressive and wanted to like be dragged out of there in handcuffs. You know what I mean? Like people really wanted, a couple of people really wanted to make a statement and felt that what we did was actually really tame. So I'm also very confused when it comes to hearing people like, wow, those protesters, how dare they? Like they just are giving us such a bad name. And I was like, really? Like that was really tame. And I know I made sure, you know, I did what I can as someone who's like very like calm and like trying to make sure that this college and that like everybody is heard, because I know that once something happens that is triggering, people turn their ears off. And I was like, well, we need to do something that will get something across to everybody. And you know, tragically, it just kind of fell by the wayside. And I guess I just we can have a conversation about like Jeffrey Sachs' politics another time, but I really think it's an issue that I do think that I agree with whoever has said that the college needs to report like both sides. And I'm going to be very intentionally hyperbolic here. I want to acknowledge that. But I liken this, and a couple of other people liken this, to inviting some figure like Adolf Hitler to campus and saying that he's a decorated war veteran and like created so much solidarity and unity. You know, like it's saying things like that without acknowledging that also atrocities have occurred. You know, and like I said, intentionally hyperbolic, you know what I mean? Just to really hammer home that there is an issue with like the kind of reporting that is happening. We need to recognize that, and that maybe, you know, we also need to recognize that student actions are going to happen no matter what. And if you're going to like bring Jeffrey Sachs and even report like, hey, this guy is also a neoliberal economist who's responsible for the death of blah 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 and the marginalization of this working class in this place and like all this other stuff, you can bring that to the bear and people will still respond like with so much vitriol and like with so much aggression no matter what. You know, like I was thinking like maybe we should post alternative posters. We're like, no, like we need to do something. Like now, you know, like people are always going to respond. And I think we need to create a space where we, like I think this has been said, where we can kind of monitor those responses. If our priorities are to make sure that the student body doesn't respond this way again in the future, and that shit like the Sachs Gate, like the gate part of Sachs Gate doesn't go down again, then I think we need to take the responsibility and take the reins here and like create a space that is just like so deliberately about discussing these speakers, and that is just will kind of like mitigate the like fuck-uppery of the institution for not disclosing all of the information.
All right, thanks, Megan. Next up, Atman.
First, I want to thank everyone for the discussion. Very good discussion. Some of us disagree very strongly, but like it's still going well, and this would have gone very differently last year, and so I just keep that in mind and
You're
thank you
welcome.
all for that.
Let's get real here.
I really like the idea of having the college or us do something involving a discussion of this prior. Perhaps we can get in contact with our office and find out who the rest of the convocation speakers are and facilitate that, so I'll look into that. And to the point of free speech, I think, obviously, like, I'm for free speech on the record, but I think it's important because we need to be accountable to those ideas, right? We should have the right to have all those ideas expressed, But if we're going to say something and we have an idea that we're putting out there and that we're deeming as important, we need to be able to stand there and defend it in some way. And so that's why I think that it was not, perhaps I'm misinterpreting the intentions, but I don't think it was the most effective way to protest the way that it did, because you're taking your idea, you're expressing it, but you're not defending it. So that totally goes against the principle of like why we have free speech. It's so we can have this like open contest of ideas and in the end discuss it, perhaps not amicably, but in a way that the best idea will win and not simply like the best theatricality or the best performance, right? So that's the only reason I take some issue with the way that it was presented, because it seemed to me that people were saying, okay, this is what you think, well, this is what we think, and we don't care what you have to say about it. Sure, we have different ideas, but we have to be able to talk about why we disagree, because otherwise we're just going to sit in a room and yell and no one likes that.
I just really want to point out that like there was no room for a discussion in the first place. This man is being paid to come and speak. And like he is up on that stage with a podium in front of him and a microphone. And the only way that our voices could have been heard in that time, we felt, was if before we didn't interrupt him, let that be known. We waited for Krislov to do his introduction, and then we were like, oh, cool. That's what we were like. That's what we were like right there. But yeah, you know, there was, if we had delivered that statement in the time that we did, we would have been cut off by the people that were like organizing that convocation. There wouldn't have been room for a discussion because it's inappropriate, frankly, and we know that too. Like there's nobody who's going to be like, yeah, like it's totally okay for Oberlin students to just completely like derail this conversation and focus on like our issues with this speaker. Because no, I also feel like that it's important to have this guy come and talk about what he has to say, whether I agree with it or not. And I feel like we all should have access to that. But the issue is that like there would not have been any type of like discourse or dialogue. It would have just been like us telling him how he felt and him being like deuces, or like us being taken out of there because we had done that way. And like we could have had a Q&A. There's so many things we could have done, again with the pontificating about what we could have done. But I just like also want to like really hammer home that there's just like in terms of like activism, it's never going to be convenient, and that's why we like have to do it in times like that, because we know that we're not going to have like a voice that will be heard.
Direct responses, it looks like. Are those
I don't think I was done with my part.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
no problem. I think that was a good point.
Back to you.
But yeah, to that point, I do think that the Q&A was a very effective way for people. He took 11 questions, I think, and that was considering that he took 15 minutes out of his time to directly address what happened. And so that could have taken, 3 or 4 more questions. So I think that if the activist had wanted to express a certain view or idea that took issue with his actions, it would have been very easy to sit in the front, rush up there as soon as time is over, and take all those questions. And then every single thing that was brought up, you could have asked him directly, and he would have responded back. And so that, for me, is the ideal situation, because you're expressing those ideas. Like, he literally can't not say anything because you're asking him a question. He's going to respond, right? So just to me, I understand the frustration. There historically have been instances in which like people are being ignored, but I think that for the purpose of the convocation, there are very specific direct outlets to have those conversations. And I mean, yes, the purpose is to have a lecture, and so it's not going to be mostly Q&A, but that is available.
Zach, you have direct response. Just a reminder, 6 minutes.
No, very short. Just a direct response to you. First off, you and me are on the same page, like almost completely. But there's one thing I do want to say. Some of you might consider this a trivial matter, but I don't. Sachs donated the money that he was paid to an NGO, and I think that's something. He came here because he wanted to have an open discourse with a radical student body. He knew what he was getting into. And so that's something that we should consider. Yeah, do I think he's a pretty not so good guy, personally? I mean, I don't know how he is as like family, but yeah, he's but he's done some.
I went to school with his daughter. It's fine.
Oh.
Why don't we keep this off?
Okay, wow, all right, never mind there. Didn't mean to open that can of worms, but what I'm saying is, yeah, I think he has done some devastating stuff, but at the same time, he wanted an open discourse, and I agree with freedom of speech, but I also I don't know. Yeah, it's just yeah.
It's also
change direct response.
All right, everybody, just we're 4.5 minutes. So Jordan,
Like it wasn't advertised as a discussion. discussion is advertised as a talk, and I think this discussion of what type of activism is appropriate isn't appropriate for student senate. It's appropriate for like students who are doing activism to have a discussion of. That's where discussions of
If anyone wants to talk about that.
belong, and I'm done.
All right, excellent. So I'm up next. We have Zach, Curry, and then Nick. If you choose to continue, what I want to do is basically make sure this doesn't lose momentum. I want to make sure that this discussion doesn't stay here in plenary. People have strong feelings about it. So I, if no one opposes, will nominate myself as a point person to send out an email where we can eventually organize to have a subsequent discussion. And what's been throwing around is like the college have done this, colleges have done that. What I think the best way to move forward, my opinion, is to look at what we as Senate can do with regards to this particular issue and with regards to future issues, because this is going to happen again. It has already happened many times before. And we have to maybe come up with some guidelines and some strategies as Senate, how we want to address these. Do we want to create this kind of space for protesting? Do we want to engage with Chris Love and the administration on ways to organize around basically expressing and promoting certain speakers? Yes, I think we do. So I propose that I will send an email to continue this discussion outside of plenary. With that being said,
Yes.
I'll feel it, gentlemen. I will take the point.
Okay.
With that, we go to Zachary.
Hi, I have 2 broad points, after echoing what Jordan said earlier, I have 2 broad points. The first one being, I think there's a difference between a convocation speaker and a regular speaker, that there's a difference between a commencement speaker and a regular speaker. Because there's a difference between putting the college's name behind a speaker and having someone come and talk and like give a dissenting idea, which I'm all down for. There's plenty of people who came here that I thought were like really intriguing, really really brought some good things together, even if I disagreed. I mean, one of the people I disagreed with is like, Sachs, like he came, he wasn't even a good speaker. Like he said nothing that you wouldn't hear in like the first few weeks of an economic development class. I didn't learn shit from that class, to be honest. And I think a lot of the people who've taken a lot of the econ were also underwhelmed because he said things that were plain out false in order to inflate his own ego. Like, oh, look how great the millennial development goals were, when in actuality over half of the millennial development goals were achieved because of China's rapid growth. That is a fact. And he didn't say, oh, I'm going to open it up to both sides and say, hey, look at this. This doesn't make me look good. Hey, look at this. What I did in Poland probably didn't change things that much. As if you read what Tobias Pucci, a PhD in development economics, said. It's the exact same. What Sachs did in Poland didn't do that much. Russia was a complete failure, and then you can talk about like the political economy, but Sachs wasn't there to have an open discourse. He was there to promote his own self. So why? Yes. So I think there's a difference between a convocation speaker and a regular speaker, and Sachs wasn't even good. If the college doesn't want people to protest their speakers, like I read a lot of Naomi Klein. I've never read anything I felt was like particularly good. But
of Naomi Klein?
Klein, yeah, sorry.
You've never, I'm sorry, that's preposterous. I have to call bullshit there.
Okay, but regardless.
You can't say Naomi Klein.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Said anything that hasn't been said a million times before and wasn't very good. If college didn't want a reaction, they should have brought a less shitty speaker. That's what I think. And 2, how we're going to police like what a protest is. A protest is fundamentally not to be liked, not to be respected. It's to weigh down. It's to weigh down, knowing you full well you have a minority opinion, to upset people, to say, hey, I'm going to quote David from Thoreau. And yes, I'm going to use that man to quote David Thoreau. Because civil disobedience, which protest is very directly related to, is weighing down with your whole weight as a minority, because if you don't, then you're not even a minority.
All right, thank you. Okay, Nick.
Wow. All right. So I don't know how I'm going to follow
I'm so
that.
sorry. I'm terribly sorry about that.
So am I the last person who's going to speak on this topic? All right. Cool. Very cool. So all I'm basically going to say is this recording is going to go up, and I urge all of us to share it on Facebook. Seriously, so that our student body knows we are talking about this, and urge them to respond to us, because we are, we're a public body. We have leverage, right? And we need to know how to use that leverage. And part of that is like the student body has to hold us accountable for how we use that leverage. So I see this as a continuation of the conversation. I see this as not letting our momentum die down. I see this as taking an intense moment that we had, taking all the emotions from that and trying to direct it somewhere useful, basically, and productive. So this is going to sound super meta when people hear this after clicking on it. But like seriously, make it sound meta. Post this on Facebook when I send it to Albert, which I will send it to Albert.
126.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, Megan.
I swear to God, this is like literally the last thing. I co-authored something about the Saxgate in the review, page 7, if you want to look at it.
Excellent.
I would encourage you to do so.
All right.
Yeah.
Very quickly, facilitator for next plenary.
Can I also?
No.
No, it should be Ty.
Ty? Okay. You sure?
I'm not going to be here at next plenary because I'm going to a conference,
Okay.
GLCA like diversity conference. Yay! But I would like to volunteer to do the next one.
Next one.
So that would be November 19th.
November 19th. Okay, so Ty next time. Yes, Matt.
Question, on November 19th, would people be available at 5 o'clock for dinner at Dean Estes' house?
Yes.
Yes.
Wait, what day? Yeah.
2 Sundays
His
from
food
now.
is so good. Just
Is
so you
that,
know.
is that
It's
after,
always so
is that
good.
Thanksgiving break weekend?
No,
No.
that's not it. Not too much.
Yeah,
Never heard that.
On this next
And can we skip the checkout?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, say goodbye.
Bye, sweetheart. I love you.
Bye.
We appreciate if you wanna meet someone that agrees with you 100% of the time, look in the mirror.
Beautiful.
I love that.